Chapter 44-41. After a moment's thought, the northern hero was released. He couldn't afford not to train until he was sure of Lu Yin's methods. Lu Yin was thinking of a way to deal with him, and time was of the essence. One day, 8 years later, the water beneath the desolate Black Mountain range turned black. It was viscous, and made people uncomfortable. Xiang Xiu floated the boat away in disgust, not wanting to touch the black water. Lu Yin didn't care, and just looked up at the sky. The earth was black, but the sky was still blue. Then, where was the black sky that was illuminated by the black earth? That was what he thought. Xiang Xiu cried out, "Look!" Lu Yin looked over, and saw a figure walking slowly across the black ground. Black bubbles appeared on the muddy ground, and strange and disgusting creatures appeared from time to time, but they didn't affect the person at all. It was the northern hero. 8 years later, they met again. It was truly a small world. The northern hero saw them as well, but the boat's appearance was a little out of place. He looked at Xiang Xiu, who was staring at him curiously. He hadn't seen her clearly last time, but now he saw her clearly. She was elegant and refined, so beautiful that she seemed otherworldly. She was like a fairy jumping through a black swamp, so eye-catching and refreshing. Before they could speak, the northern hero disappeared again. Red hero appeared, staring at Lu Yin in disbelief. What was going on? Why did they meet again? This place was very far away from where they'd last met. Lu Yin must have some way of tracking the northern hero. He knew he wouldn't get an answer, so he left. Lu Yin smiled and teleported away with the boat. He looked at Xiang Xiu strangely, but there was also a hint of worry in his eyes. She was so lucky, and even if she gained something, she would lose something. Was he really going to share her bad luck like he'd said before? That wouldn't do. Luck was too intangible, and if things went wrong, who knew what would happen? On the other side, the northern hero was released once more. This time, Red Hero told him to stay away from the river. He wanted to see if they would meet again, and he was curious as to how Lu Yin had found the northern hero. The northern hero was very obedient. In his mind, Red Hero was his master and savior, and had helped him get revenge and extend his life. He listened to everything Red Hero said. But for some reason, he wanted to meet those two people. More accurately, he wanted to meet that girl. That girl who had emerged from the mud without a stain, and the fairy who jumped around. This time, the northern hero's route was a barren desert. There were no rivers, only sand. After walking for several years, he heard from the locals that there was a forbidden area here that mortals could not approach. It was rumored that the forbidden area contained a secret that would allow one to live forever. The northern hero had been cultivating along the way, so of course he wouldn't miss this opportunity. When he opened his eyes again, he saw a picturesque scenery. Silhouettes could be seen flying through the sky. This is Planet Yu, built by the Yu clan. We don't practice the Tao of emotionlessness. Our ancestor lives forever in Ba-Yu. Remember, we don't practice the Tao of emotionlessness here. Northern hero looked around, and suddenly, his gaze locked onto someone's eyes. Lu Yin. This time, the focus was not on the northern hero, but rather on Xiang Xiu. Her luck was too good, and she didn't want to drag him down with her. Last time, he teleported to Planet Yu after disappearing from the Black Land. He'd heard that there was a family that didn't cultivate the Tao of heartlessness and worshipped Ba-Yu, so he'd come out of curiosity. You may enter and take him as your master, a loud voice boomed out, sounding quite imposing. But then, the world collapsed. The northern hero disappeared, and the red hero appeared. The peach blossom forest was reduced to ashes. Red hero stared at Lu Yin. How did you find him? The desert's forbidden area had the ability to teleport and fold space. The northern hero had been sent here directly, but he hadn't expected to meet Lu Yin here. Lu Yin frowned. Old man, don't accuse people so easily. We arrived earlier than him. This was why Red Hero had lost his composure. How could they have predicted that the Northern Hero would come here? He'd been the one to decide where the Northern Hero would go, and he'd been the one to throw him into the desert. As for the forbidden area, he'd never paid any attention to it. Planet Yu and Ba Yu were nothing more than the experiences of low-level cultivators. And yet, this forbidden area had allowed the Northern Hero to meet Lu Yin again. How had Lu Yin done it? To be able to wait here ahead of time, his methods were extraordinary. It felt like something was out of his control. It was impossible. Red Hero stared at Lu Yin, trying to guess. Lu Yin's lips curled into a smile. He seemed mysterious, but even he couldn't figure it out. Red Hero suddenly looked at Xiang Xiyu. He'd never paid any attention to her before, but now that he thought about it, why would Lu Yin bring an unimportant woman along when he was training his mind? Xiang Xiyu suppressed a chill under Red Hero's stare. Their gazes met. Red Hero stared at Xiang Xiyu. There was something wrong with this girl. Lu Yin narrowed his eyes and stepped forward, blocking Xiang Xiyu's path. He looked at Red Hero. Want a drink? Sure, Red Hero didn't refuse and moved to board the boat. You're not worthy, Lu Yin said disdainfully, then teleported away with the boat. Red Hero was stunned, but he wasn't angry. His mind was filled with thoughts of Xiang Xiyu. There was definitely something wrong with that woman. Not long after, he looked at the Northern Hero. Should he let them go? The Northern Hero opened his eyes. Who are they? My enemies, Red Hero said. Is that so? The Northern Hero retracted his gaze, thinking of the pair of eyes he'd met outside the peach blossom forest. That beautiful face on the black ground. Enemies. But at that moment, she clearly resembled his wife. That bastard. Thinking of this, he spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. Red Hero was shocked. He checked his state of mind and found a flaw. Lu Yin was despicable. This flaw was enough to reduce the Northern Hero's chances of attaining immortality by more than half, and even if he did, it would take a lot longer. That was his intention. He wanted to settle the score with Lu Yin, but Lu Yin hadn't done anything since the beginning. Red Hero could only suppress his anger. No, as long as Lu Yin was still a red specter, the Northern Hero couldn't go out again. Furthermore, this flaw would take a long time to recover. He shouldn't have let the Northern Hero go out. But what kind of ability could keep an eye on the Northern Hero? This was one of the reasons why he'd let the Northern Hero go. If he couldn't find this ability, he wouldn't be able to rest easy. That woman. Lu Yin didn't know the damage he'd done to the Northern Hero. He was especially worried about Xiang Xiyu. Xiang Xiyu's cultivation speed had been extremely fast, and she hadn't encountered any obstacles. However, she couldn't take the final step, and no one could help her. He was afraid that if he kept relying on Xiang Xiyu's luck, it would make it more difficult for him to take the final step. Compared to using Xiang Xiyu to ruin the Red Hero's plan, he'd rather break through on his own. He was certain that once he reached the immortality realm, he would be as strong as the Red Hero. After all, he was now able to fight against existences that were compatible with two universal laws. There was a high chance that he would surpass the Red Hero after breaking through. He was referring to the Red Hero at his peak. At that time, there would be no need for any schemes. After some thought, he decided to send Xiang Xiyu back. No more shopping. Xiang Xiyu was puzzled. Lu Yin said, "That's enough." Xiang Xiyu said regretfully, "I don't know if these years have helped you or not, but I think it's okay. Your path is different from mine, and your way of thinking is different." Lu Yin nodded. "It's good that it helped you. The more immortality realms there are in human civilization, the better." Xiang Xiyu was curious. Are you sending me back because of the red hero? Lu Yin didn't deny it. Are you afraid that he'll attack me? Lu Yin poured a glass of wine, a little. If the red hero couldn't find the reason why he kept an eye on the northern hero, he would definitely think of Xiang Xiyu. Even if there were unknown rules that made him apprehensive, an immortality realm cultivator would have many tricks up his sleeve. Xiang Xiyu smiled. Master Lu, a man like you is actually very charming. Lu Yin. Some people say they won't do it, and some people don't say what they do. If you do it, you'll say it. That's good, at least there won't be any misunderstandings. Xiang Xiyu smiled. The petals danced beautifully in the air. Lu Yin looked at her. That's not right, this misunderstanding is huge. He was mainly worried that he would be affected. Xiang Xiyu stood up and stretched, revealing her beautiful curves. I'll say it again. You can use me whenever you want, I'll leave it to you. Lu Yin's face twitched, and he brought her back. At the same time, the red hero found 8 color. I want to tell the unknowns where the 10-eyed crow is. He didn't avoid it and said it directly. As long as the unknowns were in the area, they could hear it. Lu Yin had to know that this was revenge for him breaking the northern hero's mental state. 8 color said calmly, you haven't completed your previous mission. You won't get the mission reward even if you tell me where the 10-eyed crow is. It doesn't matter, the red hero said. 8 color was silent. The red hero told 8 color the 10-eyed crow's location. His goal was simple. If he couldn't get it, he couldn't let Lu Yin get it either. For many years, he had tried countless times to pluck the 10-eyed crow's eyeball, but he never succeeded. He wanted to use the 10-eyed crow's innate gift to kill Lu Yin, but he didn't expect Lu Yin to get an eye instead. He only found out after the war. At that time, he wanted to move the 10-eyed crow's location, but it wasn't easy. For some reason, the 10-eyed crow's corpse couldn't be moved. He had no choice but to try plucking the eye again, but he still failed. Lu Yin had already successfully plucked an eye, and if he continued to pluck eyes, he would become even stronger. Thus, no matter how reluctant he was, he decided to give the 10-eyed crow to the unknowns. On one hand, it would weaken Lu Yin's strength, and on the other hand, it would gain the unknown's favor. Chapter 44-42. Also, Lu Yin knew the location of the 10-eyed crow, so it would be better if he had a conflict with the unknown because of this. Red Hero also hoped to obtain the mission reward since it was a 5-star mission, but it was useless if he did not complete it. After obtaining the location, 8 colors immediately left to search for the 10-eyed crow. Red Hero's gaze was ruthless. Lu Yin had attacked him time and time again, so he had to retaliate. But not long after, 8 colors returned and said, the 10-eyed crow is not here. Impossible, the 10-eyed crow is in that direction. Red Hero frowned. The 10-eyed crow is indeed not here. There is no need to lie to you, 8 colors said. Red Hero understood 8 colors and knew that 8 colors would not lie to him because of this, and there was no point in doing so. After all, he had given the coordinates for free and would not receive any rewards. Could Lu Yin have moved it? But that did not make sense. If he had moved it, how could he have seen it not long ago? He had even tried to remove the eye, so if Lu Yin could move it, there was no need for him to try. 8 colors, Lu Yin must have hidden it, Red Hero said. 8 colors did not reply. It was not important whether he had hidden it or not, as someone would complete this mission. Red Hero had left knowing whereabouts, so what was Lu Yin thinking? If he could move it, why did he not do so the first time he came into contact with the 10-eyed crow? If he could not move it, then why was the 10-eyed crow gone? He wanted to go and take a look, but he did not. Since 8 colors said that it was gone, then it was definitely not here. There was no need to make a wasted trip. Then, where was the 10-eyed crow? On the other side, Lu Yin had also left knowing whereabouts after sending Xiang Xiu back to the three universes. This was his habit. He would go and take a look whenever he had nothing to do. It had been a few years since he had left knowing whereabouts. 8 colors, I want to speak with the immortal master alone. Yes. You must confirm that it is in knowing whereabouts before you can speak alone. Lu Yin shouted, Immortal master. I am here. Lu Yin spoke to the immortal master alone. Has anything happened in knowing whereabouts recently? The immortal master said, Red Hero came once to tell 8 colors where the 10-eyed crow was, but he did not succeed in the end. Lu Yin was surprised. Red Hero actually did this. He was taking revenge on him. Unfortunately, he did not say so earlier. The 10-eyed crow was taken away by him. In the beginning, Lu Yin had not thought of taking the 10-eyed crow away, as he had tried before, but to no avail. He had not even been able to teleport away. Later on, after thinking about it, he had covered his entire body with green motes of light. The 10-eyed crow could move, and he could take it away. However, there were not enough green motes of light, so it could only move a little. Later on, when Lu Yuan and the others had drawn up a star chart and allowed Lu Yin to obtain some of the mother trees, the green motes of light had been enough to take the 10-eyed crow away. The time was right after he received the unknown mission to find the 10-eyed crow. He took the time to bring the 10-eyed crow away. No one knew about this. Of course, Red Hero did not know. He confidently told the 8-colored 10-eyed crow the location because he knew that the 10-eyed crow's corpse could not be moved. He wanted to disgust him and cause him to have a conflict with the unknowable because of the 10-eyed crow. He wanted to prevent him from plucking the 25th lyre. However, he did not know that he could bring the 10-eyed crow away. Lu Yin was glad that he had taken the 10-eyed crow with him, or else he would have lost it. It was normal for someone like Red Hero to not want to see his enemy become stronger. However, he clearly did not have the ability to use the 10-eyed crow to become stronger, yet he still wanted to continue trying. In the end, he took the 10-eyed crow away. It was too late for him to use the 10-eyed crow to plot against him. But now it seems that 8-color definitely knew that he had taken the 10-eyed crow away. It didn't matter. The rules of the unknown were greater than the heavens. At least for now, the 8 colors wouldn't attack any of the unknowns. In the gloomy steel forest, huge battleships floated in the air. In the distance, there was an endless stretch of mechanical puppets, controlled by strange lifeforms that were 3 meters tall. Those mechanical puppets were dozens of meters tall, standing like an army. Behind those mechanical puppets was a huge city, full of noise and cheers, as if it was anticipating the arrival of a certain moment. This was only one city. Across the entire planet, there were quite a few similar cities. Loud cheers could also be heard from the surrounding planets. Following that, countless battleships headed out into space, forming a torrent of steel. On both sides of the battleship, mechanical puppets were like endless ants guarding it. This was a space civilization. They had powerful technology and cultivation, which allowed the creatures in the civilization to be more compatible with mechanical technology. Continuous mining made this civilization extremely powerful. At least in this part of the universe, they were invincible. They had long unified the entire universe, and their current goal was outside the universe. Just a few years ago, a video was transmitted to this part of the universe. In the video, a creature that was only 1 meter tall was talking to them. It was very polite, and they translated those words. Trade. That creature wanted to trade. Trade for a certain material in their universe. When the word trade was transmitted to the civilization, the laughter never stopped. At the same time, ambition, conquest, war, and so on appeared. They didn't consider which civilization was earlier than them. To be able to actively find them in the universe, it meant that the civilization was definitely not weak in terms of development. They didn't need to consider. Countless years of invincibility, countless years of manufacturing battleships, and mechanical puppets had blinded their eyes. Even if there were some creatures that had rational thoughts and wanted to understand the strength of the civilization behind that creature, they would be drowned out by the voices of the entire civilization. What they needed was not trade, but control, life and death. Resources, they wouldn't pay a single cent. They would only ask for more. What awaited that civilization was war. Kill, 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 outside the universe, Lu Feiyang frowned as he watched. In these years, his cultivation had improved a lot. He had the talent of teleportation, which made him the most important genius in the 3 universes. He never lacked resources. Now, he could be considered an expert. However, he was still very respectful in front of many people. This was the upbringing of the Lu family. For example, the woman in front of him. White-wrapped silver spear, Jiaolan Jilua, one of the 6 paths of the 3 realms. Just as we expected, the only conversation between civilizations is war. On the side, Mu Feng was wiping his blade. His blindfolded eyes seemed to be looking at the universe in front of him. The blade flashed with cold light. Lu Tianyi put his hands behind his back and looked into the distance calmly. Then let's give them war. Jiaolan Jiluo looked up. From the moment we stepped into the square-inch distance, our style of doing things has changed. The rules of human civilization don't apply here. The word trade should not be used. Lu Xizhan shook his head. It will take some time to get used to it. Back then, the 9 heavens universe destroyed civilizations to protect ourselves. Now, it is for benefits. Jiaolan Jiluo looked back. Her cultivation was not as high as Lu Xizhan's, but her status was definitely not lower than his. This group of people from the Tianyuan universe was very special. Even Lu Xizhan, who was at the peak of the bitter adversity realm, did not dare to be disrespectful. Life is also a benefit. After saying that, he slowly raised his spear and stabbed it out. The silver spear turned into a white snow mark and pierced towards the space civilization in front of them. At the same time, Mu Feng, Lu Tianyi, Lu Xizhan, and the others all made their moves. There were more cultivators behind them. There were people from all 3 universes. Lu Feiyang directly brought those cultivators into the universe in front of them. This day was a disaster for the space civilization in front of them. They saw a spear piercing through a battleship. No matter how strong the battleship's attacks were, it could not be stopped. Then, the blade flashed and the sword was sharp. Someone broke through the void with a finger. The ripples created shattered countless mechanical puppets. A large group of people appeared in an instant. The war became one-sided. No matter how many battleships and mechanical puppets there were, they were all blown to pieces in the shortest time. The invincible power that the space civilization was so proud of was shattered in front of their eyes. They did not dare to believe what they saw. How could those short creatures be so powerful? They also cultivated, but it was to complement the mechanical technology. In front of those creatures, they were like children. Those creatures were called humans. In the dark steel forest, the earth was shattered. In the sky, countless figures floated and looked down. The human civilization had started to draw their own star map. This was the first large-scale war after understanding the surroundings. It was not a battlefield of absolute experts, but a battlefield of civilizations. It was the battlefield of countless cultivators. Teleportation made all of this very simple. The war between civilizations was filled with savagery. The strong and the weak were especially clear. Facing the countless resentful gazes below, Lu Xizhan was not merciful. It was just that he did not like to kill. In the distance, the blade flashed. The earth was split into 2, revealing a huge mechanical processing factory. It was a completely different world. There were all kinds of resources there. One by one, people entered the underground. When they encountered resistance, they did not hesitate to swing their blades. Lu Feiyang counted the number of people and reported to Zhelan, "There are 316 casualties in this war." Zhelan was calm. A civilization war started by hundreds of thousands of cultivators. Facing billions of enemy creatures and billions of mechanical puppets and battleships, this number of casualties is acceptable. This number of casualties in a civilization war was completely one-sided. Many of the cultivators who died were unlucky. They died from the aftershock of the attack. Less than half of them died in the hands of the enemy civilization. However, this was a battlefield. Like Mu Xia and Lu Xizhan, a casual attack was enough to cross the entire universe. On the battlefield, they had to avoid the enemy's attacks and be wary of the aftershock of their own attacks. Luckily, they had the war navigation system. Otherwise, the casualties would be even greater. In the future, there is no need to report the number of casualties. In a civilization war, you have to be prepared to die on the battlefield. We do not need to know. Mu Xia's tone was cold. It was not that he did not care about life, but in a civilization war, life was too small. To this universe's civilization, this was a civilization war. However, in the three universes, hundreds of thousands of cultivators were just a small group. If they were willing, the three universes could form a war group in the hundreds of millions. In this kind of war, there was no compensation for death. Everyone was willing. There was no need to hand over anything obtained in the war. For cultivation. For cultivators, it was equivalent to an opportunity. Only a civilization war would have compensation. A war of this scale was fought by countless cultivators. Lu Feiyang replied respectfully. Mu Xia, Master Lu's senior brother and Mr. Mu's disciple. His seniority was extremely high. Chapter 44-43. Now that this space civilization had been defeated, the next step was simple. Gather the resources needed by the three universes and destroy the upper limit of this space civilization's technology. Just like how the Lord of Balance had destroyed the upper limit of human civilization, the enemy could be destroyed mercilessly or killed mercilessly. The purpose of keeping this civilization alive was to allow them to continue mining the resources needed by the three universes. Not long after, Lu Yin appeared and looked down at the broken land with a calm expression. When Zhelan saw Lu Yin, he slowly bowed. Master Lu. Mu Xia, Lu Xizhan, and the others bowed respectfully. Inside, they were Lu Yin's seniors and senior apprentice brothers. Outside, however, everyone had to bow to them, unless they were in the eternal realm. Lu Yin nodded and looked down. Did you just discover this civilization? Sapphire Zhilua nodded. Lu Yuan and the others have drawn the star chart and discovered a civilization. This civilization has the resources we need and can produce large amounts of black energy sources. Lu Yin's eyes lit up. You can create black energy sources. Not bad. Zhelan Jiluo raised his hand and a piece of metal floated in the air. The production of the black energy source has been stagnant. The production of the spirit universe and the ninth heaven universe combined cannot compare to the production of the Tian Yuan universe. Now, we have discovered that there is a large amount of metal in this universe. As long as we mine it, we can increase the production of the black energy source by 10 times in a short period of time. 10 times. That was a number that would excite anyone. Although the black energy source did not represent the battle prowess of the progenitor realm, it represented the destructive power of the progenitor realm. Although the attack method was simple, as long as the quantity was high, it would be terrifying. In the past, ultra-spacetime only had a dozen or so black energy sources, and that was enough to guarantee their position as one of the 6 sections. Later on, when above heaven unified the heavens origin universe, they used the entire heavens origin universe's resources to create black energy sources. However, they only managed to create 100 or so black energy sources, which was equivalent to having 100 or so existences with the destructive power of progenitors. This was enough for the Tianyuan universe in the past, but it was far from enough for the three universes that were about to enter a civilization war. In the forced battles he had experienced, the highest level of battle prowess was eternal life, while progenitor realm was only a basic level of battle prowess. Above them were the laws of the order, the primordial realm, the tribulation realm, and the scoundrel realm. It was difficult to measure the number of experts at these levels, but progenitors were different. They could be counted. Progenitor realm experts were between ordinary cultivators and high-end combat forces. As long as there were enough of them, they could still influence the direction of the civilization war. If the three universes could send out tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of progenitor realm cultivators at once, what kind of scene would that be? The black energy source could speed up this process. In comparison, the war against this space civilization was nothing. A person could be a good person or a bad person, but a civilization could not be defined by good or bad. There was only life and death, and only benefits. Civilization represented Lu'in, but Lu'in could not represent civilization. Everything was to improve the strength of the human civilization. At that moment, the star map that Patriarch Lu Yuan and the others had drawn had already covered the distance of 300 years around the three universes. This distance was extremely large, and it was equivalent to bordering the Red Coat civilization. They had drawn the Red Coat civilization into the star map of the three universes. Only the direction of the God Realm civilization was left unmapped. Within the range of the 300-year eternal life realm, there were a few civilizations. More civilizations would be discovered in the future. Time passed again, and another 100 years went by. The further he went, the larger the area of the star map. Because it was a circle, it could extend any distance. Compared to the entire area, it was a very exaggerated area. This time, Patriarch Lu Yuan and the others discovered the blue sky realm. There was no need to report to Lu'in, as the battle had already begun. The blue sky realm was where Lan Meng was. There were withered tree creatures that looked like Lan Meng everywhere. They occupied the entire universe and were surrounded by a blue halo. As a ray of light shot into the blue sky realm, it was the thousand-sail heavenly mirror. The star sail charged in. With the help of the Nirvana tree, it had reached the limit of combat strength below the eternal life realm. It had once been Lu Yin's enemy, but now, it had become the edge of the civilization war. Following closely behind the star sail were countless cultivators from the three universes. Countless attacks turned the peaceful blue sky realm into a sieve, and countless withered tree creatures died tragically. Lan Meng and the human civilization were enemies, and he had always wanted to deal with the human civilization. Although he was dead now, and the hatred had disappeared, the blue sky realm had to be eradicated. Otherwise, no one knew if the next Lan Meng would be born. The eternal life realm, even the most ordinary eternal life realm, could cause harm to human civilization. Because of Lan Meng's death, the blue sky realm was no longer protected by the unknown. The arrival of the war brought doomsday to the blue sky realm. Countless withered branches pierced through the starry sky. Cultivators surrounded the withered branches and fought. Countless black beams pierced through the withered branches. They came from the black energy source. The cultivators of the Tianyuan universe and the Ninefirmament's universe fought differently, and it could be seen at a glance. The enormous withered branches soared into the sky and faced the attacks. The star sail's beams directly shattered the branches. The withered branches suddenly shrank and turned into a creature that looked very similar to Lan Meng. Its 8 eyes kept moving, and it roared angrily, "Humans, you are from the human civilization. Why did you find this place?" As it spoke, The withered branches twisted and turned into a sword that extended endlessly and cut through the starry sky. Zhang Ming hurriedly dodged and slashed out with his heartbreaker. As the master of the spiritualized universe's gate of arts, he was once one of the 7 great Sang heavens. He had the cultivation of a crossing calamity realm cultivator, but he seemed so insignificant in this civilization war. This monster was definitely the limit of combat strength below the eternal life realm. Zhang Ming's heartbreaker was useless against it. Throughout the spiritualized universe, aside from Yu Sang Tian, no one else could fight it. The star sail's figure moved, and the 9 firmaments changed. Beams of light fell from the heavenly mirror and illuminated the withered branches. The withered branches wailed, and many withered tree creatures rushed out. A considerable number of them were above the progenitor realm, and many of them were at the crossing calamity realm. After all, this was a civilization with eternal life realm cultivators, and this civilization was constantly producing eternal life realm cultivators. They had participated in the civilization war that destroyed the 9th fort, so they were not easy to deal with. In the starry sky, Lu Feiyang appeared. Figures stood behind him as they faced the incoming withered tree creatures. Kill. Most of the experts from the 3 universes who had surpassed the primordial realm had come. With the help of the Nirvana tree, their battle prowess skyrocketed, and they directly suppressed the blue sky realm. They all wore colorful armor, and the withered tree creatures could not break through them. The situation immediately became clear. In a corner of the blue sky realm, dozens of cultivators worked together to tear apart a withered tree creature and landed. Senior brother, thank you. If it weren't for you, I would have been dead. That monster was too powerful. Don't mention it. You didn't make it in time for Master Lu to impart the Nirvana tree. Otherwise, you wouldn't have needed me to save you. Everyone, be careful of the surroundings. Another monster has appeared. Kill. Suddenly, the ground distorted, and a huge withered branch shot up into the sky. It was actually no weaker than the withered tree creature that was fighting against the star sail. It had the battle prowess of a crossing calamity realm cultivator. These cultivators were shocked. They did not expect such a terrifying creature to exist here. At this moment, a red umbrella pierced the starry sky and opened. Chu Songyun appeared from the limitless umbrella prison. Those cultivators were excited. It's Chu Songyun, Master Lu's disciple. Sho. Don't disturb Senior. Chu Songyun's limitless umbrella prison enveloped the withered tree creature. No matter how the withered tree creature attacked, it could not do anything. As he pulled out his red sword, the red tip pierced into the umbrella's rib. Heartless sorrow became a sword. Emotionless sword technique, slash. With a swoosh. The withered tree creature was cut into pieces. Chu Songyun put away the limitless umbrella prison, glanced at those cultivators, and turned to kill in other directions. There were many powerful creatures in this universe, although there were no eternal realm cultivators. After Chu Songyun left, those cultivators heaved a sigh of relief. There should be no more enemies. I don't know. Strange, why would an enemy of that level appear here? I keep feeling that something is wrong here. Let's check it out. Boom. The stars exploded, and the aftermath of the war spread out. Figures fell from the sky one after another. Many people had died in this war, but this was a true civilization war. The human civilization could not only encounter civilizations weaker than themselves, and a stronger civilization war could come at any time. There was a scream, and a cultivator died inexplicably. Immediately after, more cultivators died in the surroundings. These cultivators hurriedly retreated. They did not see the enemy at all. They tried again, and another person died. They died very miserably, but they could not see the enemy. In fear, they reported the situation here. A blood-colored figure arrived. It was Shuezhan, the genius who was sleeping in the junior defense tower. Zhan had some reputation. His strength had reached the sequence law realm. As more and more experts broke through to the eternal realm, there was no need for him to sleep in the junior defense tower. These geniuses displayed their own cultivation speed and constantly improved. Is this the strange place? Zhan asked in a low voice. Those cultivators nodded. Many people died inexplicably. Senior, be careful. Among those cultivators, the strongest was only a half-ancestor, so they naturally addressed Zhan as senior. Zhan walked forward step by step. Suddenly, he raised his sword and slashed down. The blood condensation peak was 10,000 feet long. A mountain made of sharp blood chi rose from the ground, but it instantly shattered. An indescribable chill descended, causing Zhan's scalp to go numb. He retreated step by step and blocked the attack with his sword. With a bang, his sword shattered, and he was about to die. At the critical moment, a hand reached out and waved casually, dispersing the chill. Zhan was scared. He had almost died just now. What was that? He looked at the figure in front of him, and his pupils shrank. He hurriedly bowed. Greetings, Master Lu. In the distance, those cultivators were stunned at first, but then they all bowed. Greetings, Master Lu. Greetings, Master Lu. This person was Lu Yin. After the war with the Blue Sky Realm began, Lu Yuan had specially notified Lu Yin. There was no need to inform Lu Yin of this civilization war. There had been civilization wars in the past 100 years, but Lu Yin had not been informed. It was just that the Blue Sky Realm was a little special. Lu Yin had sensed Zhan's danger the moment he arrived and had teleported over to save his life. At the same time, he had discovered something interesting. Lu Yin grunted. Let's go to the other battlefields. Zhan and those cultivators bowed respectfully, and then they excitedly charged to the other battlefields. They had not expected to encounter Lu Yin here. Chapter 44-44. Zhan was just as excited. It had been over 2,000 years since they last met, and that was when Lu Yin had created the Nirvana tree. Now, Zhan had cultivated to the level of sequence laws and could break through to the primordial realm at any time. As for Master Lu, he was already invincible in human civilization. Everyone called them geniuses, but compared to Lu Yin, they were too mediocre. They were so mediocre that they had no intention of competing with him. After Zhan and the others left, Lu Yin looked ahead. Lan Meng should be living here. He still has some tricks up his sleeve. With that, he took a step forward. He did not teleport, instead walking forward step by step. An invisible force destroyed the world, and the further in he went, the stronger it became. It had gone from easily killing progenitors to now being able to kill powerhouses who had crossed bitter adversity. However, in Lu Yin's eyes, it was no different from nothing. Even if Lan Meng was here, it would be impossible for him to escape. Lu Yin raised a hand and tapped with his finger. The void cracked open, revealing a parallel spacetime. As the parallel spacetime opened, the void of the entire Blue Sky realm constantly changed. Parallel spacetime cracked open one after another, revealing countless withered branch creatures. This shocked the three universes. They had not expected so many to be hidden. Lu Yin looked up and narrowed his eyes. It had to be said that the Blue Sky realm was capable of producing eternal realms one after another, especially one as strong as Lan Meng. Although they had lost their eternal realm powerhouses, the countless years of accumulation combined with the special characteristics of these creatures allowed them to surpass the cultivators of the three universes in terms of overall strength. It was time for the Yi Manor to move out. Lu Yin did not take action himself. The Divine Seal catalog flickered above his head, and consciousness bodies shot out, cooperating with the cultivators of the three universes to kill the withered branch creatures. He could easily kill these creatures, but it was better to leave them for the cultivators to kill. The future civilization wars would not be his alone. Human civilization needed powerhouses to constantly rise up. Lu Yin himself entered the parallel spacetime in front of him. There were no longer any withered branch creatures in this parallel spacetime. This was where Lan Meng cultivated, and there were many things he had collected. Lu Yin casually glanced around, and his gaze suddenly stopped on two items. One was a black armor plate, and there were 4 of them. Lan Meng had actually hidden 4 of them, and he had not placed them in his cosmic ring but in the blue sky realm. He had hidden them well. Back when Lan Meng ambushed old ancestor Shan, at the final moment, the 100 seals were scattered. It was not strange for Lan Meng to obtain 4 black armor plates. Another thing that attracted Lu Yin's attention was a sword. It was a red sword that came from the path of ruthlessness. The moment he saw the sword, he felt his heart palpitate. It was as if he could see the sharpness of the sword, a sharpness that even he would find difficult to withstand. Could it be? He teleported and appeared in front of the red sword. He slowly raised his hand and touched it. Suddenly, he loosened his grip. This was the sword will of the emotionless Tao. It was indeed the sword of the emotionless Tao, and it should belong to Hong Shuang. If it was not Hong Shuang, whose sword will could make his heart palpitate in the heartless path? The red hero was one of them, and the drunkard was at most half of them. Even their sword wills could not reach this level of palpitation. Only Hong Shuang, the master of the second wall and the founder of the ruthless doctrine, could do it. Hong Shuang's sword was actually with Lan Meng. He recalled what Lan Meng had once said. Its father had participated in the war that destroyed the 9th wall, and its opponent should have been the second wall. Its father had personally seen Hong Shuang enter a tributary of the River of Time, which belonged to the current Tianyuan universe. In that case, it was not impossible for its father to obtain Hong Shuang's sword. At that time, Hong Shuang had been betrayed by the Red Hero, and before that, it had fought a decisive battle with Emperor Qiu, the master of Air Mao. It had been severely injured, so it was not surprising that the red sword had been lost or stolen. Fortunately, he had found the blue sky realm. Otherwise, who knew when the red sword and the 4 pieces of armor would appear? Lu Yin took a deep breath, picked up the red sword and the pieces of armor, and left. Aside from these 2 items, the rest of the items here were worthless. Lan Meng had taken away the valuable items, but the valuable items and the worthless items had been left behind. Now, Lu Yin had benefited. To the human civilization, the blue sky realm was actually very valuable, which was why this war had begun. The fact that the blue sky realm could produce so many eternal realms meant that it was rich in cultivation resources. The body parts of the withered tree monsters were also very valuable, enough for the human civilization to research and create new weapons. Consciousness bodies would not die, and when countless consciousness bodies swept through the blue sky realm, it meant that the war here was nearing its end. No matter how many withered tree monsters were hidden in the parallel spacetime of the blue sky realm, they were powerless to reverse the situation. Half a month later, the war in the blue sky realm ended. Lu Yin went to the Red Coat universe under the stars to see Jiu Wen. Senior, if you obtain the weapon of the base master Hong Shuang, are you confident that you can fight the Red Hero? This was the first sentence that Lu Yin asked Jiu Wen when he saw him. His voice was very soft, but it had a huge impact on Jiu Wen. He looked at Lu Yin in a daze. Suppressing artifact turbid treasure. Lu Yin shook his head. Jiu Wen's eyes flashed. Sword. Lu Yin and Jiu Wen looked at each other, waiting for Jiu Wen's answer. Jiu Wen was very excited, as he had not expected Lu Yin to really obtain the sword of the base master Hong Shuang. As someone who cultivated the path of ruthlessness, he was very clear about the profound meaning of the sword. When the sword intent merged with the path of ruthlessness, it would bring a huge impact to the cultivators of the path of ruthlessness. It could also point out a path for the cultivators of the path of ruthlessness. Give it to Chu Songyun, Jiuwen asked. Lu Yin was surprised. Senior, don't you need it? Jiuwen said bitterly, even if I get it, it would be useless. My path has long been fixed, and I will never be able to reach the heights of the base master Hong Shuang. However, Chu Songyun is different. In the past, he only had good talent, but now that he has been baptized by a master, his heart is firm. He has a unique advantage in the cultivation of the path of ruthlessness. Lu Yin nodded. Of course, he was clear about this. On the day of the disciples' ceremony, Chu Songyun had confirmed the path of ruthlessness. This was also a huge impact on Lu Yin. That was why he said that Chu Songyun should be the peak of humanity and had high expectations for him. It could be said that from the moment the Red Hero betrayed them, the path of ruthlessness was divided into two eras. One was the era of the Red Frost, and the other was the era of the Red Hero. As for Chu Songyun, Lu Yin felt that he was the person who could start the third era. The battle with the immortal feather had confirmed this point. Chu Songyun carried Jiuwen's red umbrella and fought with the immortal feather's attacks that were compatible with the laws of the universe. Although he was heavily injured time and time again, he did not fall. He had already completely adapted to Jiuwen's red umbrella. That was Jiuwen's weapon. Chu Songyun's talent in the cultivation of the path of ruthlessness was too high. Lu Yin took a deep look at Jiuwen and said, I hope he doesn't let you down. Jiuwen smiled and said, he won't. To be able to meet you, Mr. Lu, is his fortune. It is also the fortune of the path of ruthlessness. I, Jiuwen, am here. Thank you, Mr. As he said that, he slowly bowed to Lu Yin. Lu Yin teleported away and did not accept this bow. Jiuwen had also sacrificed a lot to deal with the Red Hero. Although it was unfair to the current red-clothed cultivators under the stars and had taught them the wrong path of cultivation, he had also planned to sacrifice himself. It could only be said that everyone's choice was different. He was different from Master Grass and sunken Jian Yongsheng. He had the determination to stake everything on a single throw. Lu Yin left the red-clothed universe under the stars and returned to the Tian Yuan universe to look for Chu Songyun. Master. Chu Songyun bowed. During the battle in the Immortal Feather Civilization, he had been severely injured. After that, he had entered the Mirage domain to recuperate for a long time before he recovered. Lu Yin looked at Chu Songyun and asked, when can you break through to the Eternal Realm? Chu Songyun thought for a while and said, I don't know. You should be very familiar with the path of ruthlessness. The more I know, the more I don't know. The path of ruthlessness is very broad. Emotions are the most complicated thoughts of humans. Ruthlessness is just as complicated as emotions. Lu Yin stretched out his hand and the red sword appeared. Chu Songyun looked at the red sword. The moment the sword appeared, he felt connected to it. It was the profound meaning of the path of ruthlessness. It was the path of ruthlessness. He looked at Lu Yin in surprise and asked, Master, this is... Don't ask. Feel it yourself. Take it or not, Lu Yin said calmly. Chu Songyun's gaze fell on the sword again and looked at it deeply. After a while, he bent down and raised his arms, Disciple, take the sword. Lu Yin placed the sword in Chu Songyun's hand. Chu Songyun's body shook, and his gaze turned cloudy in an instant. It was as if countless emotions were intertwined and he was struggling. His body trembled, and he maintained his posture of taking the sword. Lu Yin frowned. Hong Shuang's sword had a greater impact on the cultivators of the path of ruthlessness than he had imagined. Perhaps it was because Chu Songyun was too talented in the path of ruthlessness. He hoped that this sword would bring him a path and not an abyss. Sitting down slowly, Longshi poured tea for Lu Yin. Lu Yin drank a mouthful and waited calmly. Long she looked at Chu Songyun and left. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. A full 10 days passed before Chu Songyun woke up. He lowered his arms and looked at Lu Yin. Master, who owns this sword? Lu Yin asked, how do you feel? It's vast. It's as if everything in the path of ruthlessness has been accommodated. But it also feels like a lighthouse has lit up in the ocean of the path of ruthlessness. Master, what is this sword? This was the 3rd time he had asked. Lu Yin did not answer and only said, cultivate well. There's no need to rush to break through to the eternal realm. Success will come naturally. Human civilization does not lack an ordinary eternal realm cultivator. What they lack is a guide for the path of ruthlessness. He looked at Chu Songyun. The glory of the 2nd stronghold must be reborn in your hands. Chu Songyun's eyes narrowed as he vaguely guessed something. He bowed deeply to Lu Yin. Disciple understands. Soon, Chu Songyun went into seclusion. Lu Yin brought the 4 pieces of armor to 7 treasures Heavenly Toad 25 and asked it to translate. 25 no longer cared about the consciousness universe. The consciousness universe had been rebooted, and it was now living in the Tian Yuan universe. Seeing Lu Yin find 4 pieces of armor at once, it was quite surprised. Wait, there's no hurry. Let me take a look first. After all, I'm very calm. 25 took the 4 pieces of armor and looked at them seriously. Lu Yin waited quietly. At the same time, he looked at 25. 25 looked at the 4 pieces of armor one after another, and the expression on his face kept changing. Sometimes it was sad, sometimes it was surprised, sometimes it was in disbelief, and sometimes it was hesitant. The variety of expressions made Lu Yin look forward to the content of the 4 pieces of armor. After a while, 25 said, I won't repeat it. I'll translate it for you. Although some of the content doesn't need to be translated, I'm worried that there might be some code words. So, I'll translate it for you. I'm very calm, so boss kept me. Lu Yin nodded, thank you. Chapter 44-45. 25 raised a piece of armor. I knew that we would have to part one day. Eternal life. There is no such thing as eternal life. Theoretically, eternal life is eternal, but no creature can truly live forever. From the moment we defeated the dark apocalypse civilization, the days of this old man's departure from the entire race have entered the countdown. I can't bear to part with you, children. The 7-colored lake, the emerald green lotus leaves, and the innocent smiles on your faces made me reluctant to part with you. Looking at you all, I know that I'm still alive. Unfortunately, this day will eventually come. Oh right, there's also that hateful and naughty little 6. I really hope I can see you one last time before I die. 25 blinked. That's all. Lu Yin took the armor piece. Does it record your reluctance to part with the 7 treasures Heavenly Toad tribe? 25 nodded silently. We can't bear to part with you either. Lu Yin patted its head and did not say anything else. Soon, 25 took out a 2nd piece of armor. There's a coordinate recorded here. Coordinate. 25 translated it for Lu Yin. Lu Yin traced it in the sky and remembered the half-invincible coordinate that Patriarch Shan had left on another piece of armor. The 2 matched, and there was no mistake. It was these coordinates, but it could only be considered half of half. The previous coordinate was a line, but the current coordinate was only one end of a line, and there was no other end. The point where the 2 lines intersected was where the invincible coordinate was, but just based on this half of the coordinate, it was impossible to draw the 2nd line. One more coordinate was missing. Splitting a coordinate into 3 pieces was enough to show the importance old ancestor Shan placed on it. He was not guarding against himself. Back when he was trapped in the Mahakala ceiling mirror, he was also guarding against the Dark Enlightenment civilization. He was guarding against the unknown, which was why he had split the pieces. Yes, Patriarch Shan had died because he was being watched by some creature. Perhaps it had sensed it at the beginning of the war with the Dark Apocalypse civilization. Lu Yin did not know the details, so he could only guess. However, it was clear that these 100 pieces of armor would not be collected in a short period of time. 25 took out the third piece. There's only one sentence on it. It was a little conflicted. Is Patriarch Shan crazy? Lu Yin was curious. What's written on it? 25 coughed. I'll translate it for you, but don't think that I said it. I'm too calm to say such things. Lu Yin looked at it. It stared at the piece of armor. There are indeed invincible techniques in this world. We were all wrong. That person who had been laughed at for his entire life unleashed the most powerful and invincible punch. With one punch, he destroyed an entire fishing civilization. Lu Yin's eyes widened, thinking that he had misheard. What did you say? 25 stomped his feet. I didn't say that. It was the ancestor. I'm not that shallow. Say it again. Lu Yin's expression was solemn. 25 translated again and hurriedly said, I'll reiterate again. I didn't say that. I'm so calm and steady. I wouldn't say something like that. Lu Yin stared at the plate in shock. Was this for real? Destroying a fishing civilization with one punch. Are you kidding me? That was a fishing civilization. Even Grand Ancestor Shan would not be able to defeat the Dark Enlightenment civilization that easily. Even so, there were still survivors from the Dark Enlightenment civilization who managed to escape. Who? So terrifying that he could destroy a fishing civilization with one punch. Wait, punch. He suddenly thought of the Starry Fist. Sunken Eternity's masters had said that the Starry Fist was invincible, and his masters had come from the 9th base. Could it be true? Even Air Mao had said that the Taya Starry Fist was invincible. It couldn't be. He had also opened the Astral Fist manual. The Starry Fist was indeed powerful. However, it was more suitable for inheriting a civilization. It was a fist technique of a civilization, not an individual. A fist technique of a civilization? An invincible technique. Perhaps this was the path to invincibility. An individual's strength was ultimately limited. Only with the blessing of a civilization could one be invincible. Was this the case? Lu Yin stared at the piece of armor. That short sentence had changed his perception. Grand Ancestor Shan would not speak nonsense. There were indeed invincible techniques in this world. Someone who had been laughed at for their entire life. There were too many legends about the 9 bases era. He wanted to go against the flow of time and return to the peak of the 9 bases era. He wanted to witness the birth of heroes and see the resplendent starry sky. There's more here. Do you want to translate? Lu Yin put away the plate. Continue. 25 coughed again. I'll write it down this time. Lu Yin watched. Every living being has the right to choose. Every civilization can have a creature that can defy the ancients. But can defying the ancients really change the fate of a civilization? Lu Yin took a step forward and stared at the stars. Defying the ancients. He had finally mentioned defying the ancients. He had always remembered defying the ancients. When he had broken through, Brave Surge had caught up with some people, but the last person had thrown him back because it was too early. The answer he had obtained from Azure Lotus was that defying the ancients really did exist, but they could not return. The turbid treasure was most likely a gift from defying the ancients to the later generations. Lu Yin had thought that the turbid treasure might be able to contact defying the ancients. Once defying the ancients returned, human civilization would be completely different. However, other civilizations might have defying the ancients as well, but but there were no records of them returning. Azure Lotus knew very little. He was confident that defying the ancients was an existence that matched the laws of two universes, but once defying the ancients left, there was no guarantee of returning. The truth of defying the ancients was still unclear. Defying the ancients, defying the ancients. Defying the ancients means all suffering, and this suffering will be paid for by civilization. This old man's karmic bindings are complete, and there's nothing I can do about defying the ancients, so I won't join in the fun. Whether this path is right or wrong, this old man hopes that the future generations will be accounted for. 25 stopped. Luin frowned, that's it. 25 shook his head, that's it. Luin looked at the words written in the stars, that's it. What was written here? Expectations. Conflicted choices. What exactly was defying the ancients? He had thought that he could learn the truth of defying the ancients through Patriarch Shan, but now it seemed that even Patriarch Shan did not know. He naturally had the ability to defy the ancients, but his karmic bindings were complete due to encountering the dark apocalypse, so he did not set foot on that path. Otherwise, with Patriarch Shan's strength, he might have been able to return. An existence that matched the laws of three universes was a rare powerhouse throughout history. No matter how difficult the defying the ancients was, it might not be able to keep such a powerhouse. What a pity. But what did the last sentence mean by accounting for the future generations? It seemed to be referring to something. After all 4 plates were translated, 25 left. He found human civilization very interesting. No wonder the star toad was willing to stay. Luin looked at the plates and put them away. With 20 plates, the external pupil avatar's defense had increased again. He found a place to lie down in the hanging coffin and disappeared. Who's there? Come out and talk, Luin called out. The Divine Master heard him. He had always been there, but he knew that Luin was not looking for him. I'm here. This was the Black Unknown. Ever since it discovered that Lu Yin's drawing of the star chart was especially fast, the Black Unknown's attitude towards him had changed. Before, it would completely ignore him and not say a word, but now, it could chat as long as Lu Yin was willing. Black, have you heard of an invincible fish technique? An invincible fish technique. The starry fish, the old man said. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Old man, you know about it. He, of course. Since ancient times, the only thing that could truly be called invincible was that punch. Didn't Second Hair say that before he died? The old man chuckled. Lu Yin asked, is the starry fist really invincible? Ha! It really was the starry fist, but if it was invincible, why was the fallen star universe only worth a 2-star mission reward? He could not figure it out. After all, the Big Dipper Broken Stars had opened the Astral Fist manual for him. Even if it was difficult to cultivate, since it was opened, there was a possibility of cultivating it, which was equivalent to giving him the possibility of being invincible. This was only worth a 2-star mission reward. Something was wrong, something was definitely wrong. 8 colors, is the fallen star universe only worth a 2-star mission reward? Lu Yin asked. 8 colors replied, yes. Why? Don't you know that the starry fist is there? No comment. Lu Yin frowned. He did not know if they were kind enough to help him. Then, would they have the same plan as Yuche? They couldn't learn the starry fist themselves, so they let him learn it and then snatch it from him. No, if he learned the invincible starry fist, who could snatch it away? Since it was invincible, no one could snatch it away. 8 colors must be hiding some purpose. Kid, why are you suddenly asking this? Did you learn the starry fist? The old man asked. Lu Yin said bluntly, yes. Interesting. Ah, old man, don't you care? Why should I care? Didn't you say it was an invincible fish technique? The old man chuckled. Little guy, isn't the word invincible incredible? Yes. In that case, what's there to worry about? If you think it's incredible, then it shouldn't exist. Besides, I know the starry fish too. Lu Yin raised his eyebrows. Every civilization that participated in the war that destroyed the 9 bases knew it, but no one could successfully cultivate it. This fish technique can indeed reach absolute invincibility, but it's also true that it can't be cultivated, the old man said. Lu Yin understood. No wonder 8 colors did not care about the fallen star universe. Everyone knew the starry fist, so what was there to hide? Qin Jian Yongxing had been in the fallen star universe for so many years, but he had not cultivated the starry fist to invincibility. At the same time, he also understood why the unknown did not do anything to the fallen star universe. Perhaps the unknown was also observing the fallen star universe to see if anyone could cultivate it. However, since the destruction of the 9 bases, the strongest person in the fallen star universe was Qin Jian Yongxing, and he had not cultivated anything. And 8 colors must know that the Big Dipper remnant star was the fist intent of the starry fist. They had even fought during the 9 bases era, so why would they pay attention to a fist intent that was on the verge of disappearing after so many years? Which stronghold does the starry fist belong to? Lu Yin asked. The 6th, the black unknown answered. Lu Yin understood. This meant that the well-dressed man who had teamed up with the Red Frost Stronghold's Fort Master and the 7th Stronghold's Elder to fight the 10-eyed crow was the Fort Master of the 6th Stronghold. In that case, the invincible fist technique should also have been produced by this Fort Master. Chapter 44-46. Old man, why are you so sure that the invincible power is the starry fist? Lu Yin asked. The old man replied, you already know the answer. Since you came to knowing whereabouts to ask, you must know something. I know that the starry fist destroyed a fishing civilization, Lu Yin said. Chi Tun. What? The fishing civilization that was destroyed was called Chi Tun, and it was one of the fishing civilizations that once besieged the humans' 9th stronghold. Their opponent was the 6th stronghold, and they were all destroyed by a single punch. It was truly tragic, but it's also a pity. This Chi Tun civilization was actually not bad. If it had been another civilization that had attacked the 6th stronghold, such as those strange birds, they would have been destroyed with a single punch. Kid, you wouldn't have been able to teleport either. This innate gift is truly annoying. Lu Yin fell silent. The Chi Tun civilization. There really was a fishing civilization that had been destroyed with a single punch. He could not imagine how resplendent that punch was to be able to destroy a fishing civilization. Does this Chi Tun civilization still have any inheritances? No, it was destroyed with a single punch. The core space was completely destroyed. What a pity, the old man said. Lu Yin left knowing whereabouts, and his interrogation had gone smoothly. Perhaps the old man and the others were just lamenting about the past and casually mentioning it. However, the impact on Lu Yin's heart was huge. This was an invincible technique that even existences like the old man and Patriarch Shan acknowledged. It would be great if he could learn it. More than 100 years had passed since he had last merged with a creature from Delight City. Lu Yin teleported in the direction of Delight City and rolled his die to see where it was. Dozens of days later, in a dark space, he saw a ball of light. He rushed over and merged with it. He opened his eyes. It wasn't Delight City. There was no booming music, nor was there a distant castle. There was only a dark underground, and there were strange skeletons in front of him. There were also sourcebox arrays all over the place. Memories flooded in. Lu Yin quickly learned that he was within a cosmic civilization, and the creature that he had fused with had accidentally escaped from a sourcebox that they had obtained from the core of the universe. It was exactly the same as the situation with 9 Heavens Universe's execution. It was the same thing. Execution had created a deathly stillness in Ninafirmament's universe and collected sourceboxes to create a sourcebox array that would lead to the universe of death. This creature was the same, and it was about to succeed. He had collected almost all of the universe's most powerful sourceboxes. This civilization had immortal realm cultivators, but they were far inferior to those from the Ninth Heaven universe. There was no way for them to discover where this creature was or what it was doing. In fact, if it weren't for Lu Yin, it would have been difficult to find traces of Zhu in the Nine Firmaments universe. However, it was also impossible for Zhu to use his sourcebox array to attract the Death universe. Lu Yin had not known about this back then, but now that he knew, the karmic phenomenon was more than enough to shield him from the Death universe. This civilization did not have any karmic celestial phenomena. Once this creature set up the sourcebox array, it would be able to send a signal to the dead universe and draw it over. Lu Yin didn't know if this space civilization was lucky or not, but he was actually able to merge with this life form. Without hesitation, he rushed out of the ground and charged toward the eternal life realm of the universe. Then, as expected, he was killed instead. Before he died, Lu Yin saw the eternal life realm experts' confused gaze. They had been looking for this creature for a long time, but to no avail. Why did it suddenly seek death? In fact, if not for Lu Yin, he wouldn't have known about this universe. For the sake of civilization, he would not do that. After all, this creature had helped him collect so many sourceboxes, and this universe also had the Mother Tree and Eternal Life Realm experts, which were extremely valuable to Lu Yin. Unfortunately, he had no way of knowing its location, so he could not allow this creature to live. Otherwise, what would he do if he sent a signal to Luz City to change directions? It had not been easy for him to lure Luz City to the divine realm, and if he had not contacted them, things would have been even worse. Luz City was only one of the abysses of the Death universe, and Lugu had withered away. There were other abysses in the Death universe, and if he attracted another one, it would be troublesome. This incident also reminded Lu Yin of something. There were countless civilizations in the three universes that had creatures like Zhu that wanted to attract the Death universe. If these creatures were not dealt with, they would become a hidden danger. But how could he deal with them? That was rather troublesome. Lu Yin continued to roll his die. After a period of time, Lu Yin merged with one of Luz City's skeletal creatures. Memories flowed into his body, and he relaxed when he learned that Luz City had not changed directions. After withdrawing from the fusion, he headed to Xiang City. It had been more than 100 years since he had sent Tuolin there to observe others, so it was time to ask about the situation. Lu Yin arrived outside Xiang City and saw the stone golem lying in outer space, bored to death. It had built a meteorite city for itself, and it was filled with its people. Of course, there were also humans who lived and traded within. When it saw Lu Yin arrive, the stone golem hurriedly walked out, not daring to show any disrespect. "How is it?" Lu Yin asked. The stone golem replied, "Nothing out of the ordinary." "Has Tuolin ever come out?" "He came out a few years ago, but he usually comes out once every 10 years. It will be a few years before he comes out again." At this time, some people walked out of Xiang City, cursing as they did not see Lu Yin or the stone golem. Lu Yin frowned as he listened to their curses. It was time to limit the number of people who could enter Xiang City. The current Xiang City was much different than it had been in the past, and everyone was suspicious. The main reason was that too many people had entered, and some people did not follow the rules and exposed their identities. Of course, they had paid a price for doing so, but it could not make up for the losses that came with controlling Xiang City. Since Tuolin had his own opportunities in Xiang City, Lu Yin could not let others get in the way. When he thought of this, he teleported back to the Tian Yuan universe and gave the order to limit the number of people who could enter Xiang City. Anyone who wanted to enter Xiang City would have to be carefully selected. Only when Tuolin completely left Xiang City would the restrictions be lifted. Lu Yin then entered Xiang City and turned into a bird, continuing to search for Tuolin while using his wish force. Not long after, he found Tuolin. Tuolin was currently helping someone repair a river, and he was sweating profusely. Qinghe was behind him, blocking the sun for him. Hui Kan, in his cat form, was relaxing under a tree in the distance. Lu Yin landed on the tree. "You're quite comfortable." The cat's fur stood on end, and he subconsciously jumped up. He only relaxed when he saw that it was Lu Yin and spoke in a fawning voice, "Master, you're here." Lu Yin looked down at Hui Kan without saying a word. Hui Kan felt the pressure and hurriedly said, "Master, I'm not as comfortable as I look. I just rested for a while. I've been wandering around those people and listening to their conversations to see if I can help Master find anything. I'm also on guard against anyone trying to harm senior brother." "Oh. Then what did you hear?" "Master, you should really take care of those cultivators. They're all messing around when they come in. We've clearly restrained them from revealing themselves unless they're facing a life or death situation. However, when they came in, they were exposed and wanted to talk to the people here. In the end, they were burned by the people here. This makes things difficult for us. Now, everyone is looking at us like we're monsters, and I can't get close to senior brother." "Right," Yen Ryu was almost dragged over and burned. Fortunately, senior brother promised to help repair the river and save it. "Do those people know that Xiaoyu has changed?" "They don't know, but they want to try." Lu Yin looked into the distance. "I've already instructed them to reduce the number of people entering as much as possible." That's good, that's good." Hui Kan smiled awkwardly, but he didn't dare say anything else. By the river, Tuolin was working very hard. He was bent over with his back bent, but he was smiling as he talked to the others. When he was tired, he would drink water under a tree. There were also people who gave him steamed buns and other food. It was a very fulfilling day. It seemed difficult, but Tuolin seemed to be enjoying himself. There was a tent in the distance, and he slept there at night. Without waiting for Lu Yin to move, Hui Kan sprinted into the tent. He seemed very enthusiastic. Not long after, Tuolin came out and ran excitedly to the tree. "Master." Lu Yin looked at Tuolin. "Are you tired?" "I'm not tired, Master. I finally understand what it means to be fulfilled through hard work. This feeling is completely different from cultivation. It's easy to see the rewards of a mortal's hard work, but the world of cultivation is different. There are dangers at every step, but the deepest feeling is not the rewards. I like this kind of life." Tuolin was happy. Lu Yin sighed. This child always gave people the feeling that he was simple-minded. His gaze was pure, but he wasn't stupid. He read a lot and could occasionally give Lu Yin insights. He also had a reverence for Lu Yin that was close to faith. Who wouldn't like such a disciple? "What about Xiaoyu? Is it hard?" "Master, it's not hard." Xiaoyu's voice entered Lu Yin's ears. It was very soft and comfortable, like a clear spring under the scorching sun. Lu Yin smiled. "That's good. It's good that you like this kind of life. I don't need you to be indomitable. Just be happy and be yourself." Hui Kan rolled his eyes. Tuolin was excited and his breathing became hurried. "Yes, Master." "That's right, Master. I've been observing the people here all these years and found a strange phenomenon." "Oh. What phenomenon?" Lu Yin hurriedly asked. Tuolin said, "Everyone's life here is a legacy." Lu Yin raised his eyebrows. "Legacy?" He knew that everyone in Xiang City had their own circle of life. The people here passed it down from generation to generation. Every generation didn't have a long lifespan, so they were still living in a fixed circle. It was indeed a legacy. But what method did they use to pass it down? I found that many people are like a word. Tuo Lin said. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. What word? For example, the granny who sells vegetables on East Street. She grew vegetables in her own garden all her life. She ate them herself and sold them herself. She always walked the same path. It was difficult to make the granny take a detour. That garden had passed through many people, but the granny never married and the garden never stopped growing. I helped the granny fetch water and talk to her. After many years, when I saw the granny again, I saw a word on her, Ji. Ji. Yes, Ji. I don't know why, but when I saw the granny's disciple, I thought of this word. This was the heart of destiny. It was hidden in everyone's life, experience, and legacy. Lu Yin was excited. He had found it. He had finally found the heart of destiny. It was definitely it. Chapter 44-47. No wonder Yu Che couldn't find it. It had entered Xiang City as a fish, not a human. How could it communicate with those people? How could it see the words on their bodies? Those words weren't carved on their bodies. They were born because of the words. They weren't born as humans, but as an experience, a kind of inheritance. No wonder no one could find it. This was something that only Tuo Lin could find. The legendary invincible technique of the fifth stronghold. He wondered what it would be like if he could cultivate it. Tuo Lin, open your heart and talk to them, Lu Yin encouraged. Tuo Lin nodded vigorously and said excitedly, Disciple understands, Master. I like this feeling very much. Disciple has read many books. Books are written by people, and every book has the writer's thoughts. Reading can help you comprehend principles, and talking to these people can also help you comprehend. Lu Yin praised, Are you saying that they are like walking books? Tuo Lin said, Yes, everyone is a walking book. Some people may not even know how to read, but their life experience is also a book. This disciple used to think that there were no books that were exactly the same, but I saw it here. A word represents a book and represents a person's life. This disciple wants to see what the lives of everyone here are like and what it would be like to read all their words. This disciple hopes to do it. Lu Yin encouraged him again, then do it. Master will wait for the day when you can read everyone's words. Thank you, Master. Take Xiaoyu back. Tuo Lin was very reluctant and wanted to talk to Lu Yin, but someone woke up in the distance and asked loudly. Tuo Lin had no choice but to return to his tent to rest. Watching Tuo Lin leave, Lu Yin said to Hui Kan, Protect your senior. You can't let anything happen to him. What he saw now represents the past glory of humanity. Hui Kan was surprised, past glory. Hui Kan wasn't stupid. On the contrary, he was very smart, and Lu Yin didn't need to hide it from him. Everyone had entered Xiang City to find a way to control it, and Tuo Lin was the only person who had entered. He could also see the life experiences of those in Xiang City, so he guessed that Tuo Lin had probably found a way to control Xiang City. Lu Yin said, Your senior's opportunity is here. Protect him well. In the future, he will help you find the opportunity that belongs to you. Hui Kan nodded silently, Understood, Master. Lu Yin looked at Hui Kan, You are very smart and are naturally suited for the world of cultivation. However, because you are too smart, you have missed out on many things. Spend more time with your senior. What he sees is different from what you see. Your future may not necessarily lie with me, but with your senior. Hui Kan respectfully acknowledged. Lu Yin did not lie to him. Tuo Lin's heart was pure, and he saw things differently from everyone else. Hui Kan was the exact opposite. Although he did not have any bad intentions, he was vicious and merciless, and he knew how to scheme. There were far too many cultivators with such thoughts. Lu Yin could give him a powerful inheritance, but he could not give him an inheritance that was comparable to the heart's undivided affinity. Some people could only rely on themselves to obtain their own opportunities. He also hoped that Huiken would be able to obtain a powerful inheritance. After all, Huiken was a descendant of the Hui ancestor. The Hui ancestor had sacrificed too much for human civilization, and without him, Lu Yin would not be where he was today. As for the heart's affinity technique, Lu Yin didn't necessarily need to learn it. It was impossible for him to learn all of its powerful abilities. It would be best if Tuo Lin could learn it, and no matter how he looked at it, Tuo Lin was the most suitable for the heart technique. Because he had read a lot. After leaving Xiang City, Lu Yin returned to the Tian Yuan universe and entered the Mirage domain. He wanted to cultivate the Starry Fist. Cultivating the Starry Sky Fist would allow one to become invincible and destroy an entire fishing civilization with a single punch. It had to be said that this made him very tempted. Perhaps cultivating this fist technique would take up a lot of time, but what he did not lack the most was time. He stood on the banks of the river of time and closed his eyes. The Astral Fist manual appeared in his mind. The Big Dipper fish star was just one of them. He had ignited the Big Dipper fish star, but it was as small as a firefly in front of the enormous Astral Fist manual. What he needed to do was ignite all the fish stars until they covered the entire constellation. Then, he would use the power of the constellations to unleash the strongest Starry Fist. Countless constellations were equivalent to stars, and this was the true Starry Fist. The path of cultivation was clear, and the method was simple. He just had to comprehend the power of the fist and continuously increase the power of each star. Different stars had different profound meanings. Lu Yin stood on the banks of the river of time for 100 years. Of course, time did not flow in the outside world, but he kept track of it. In 100 years, he had ignited 3 stars, which meant that he had comprehended 3 different profound meanings from the Astral Fist manual. However, the stars in the sky were endless, and it would take longer to comprehend the profound meanings. Lu Yin suddenly opened his eyes as beads of sweat dripped down his forehead. No, that was wrong. He watched as the Astral Fist manual extinguished the 3 stars that he had ignited. Igniting them was one thing, and he could still unleash a Starry Fist with these 3 stars. However, the profound meaning of igniting these 3 stars originated from the Big Dipper fish star. He had comprehended the power of the fist under the Big Dipper fish star's profound meaning. Was it his own fist force or the fist force of the person who had unleashed the Big Dipper fish star's fist force? If he continued cultivating and ignited all the stars, the Starry Fist that he unleashed would not be his own, as the foundation would belong to someone else. This was something he could accept. Looking at the various battle techniques that he had cultivated, not all of them had been created by him. Many of them had been created by others, and he had simply learned them. What he could not accept was that using someone else's foundation to comprehend the profound meaning of a fist technique would take too long. It was like a person doing something that they liked and were good at would take a short time to complete, and the results would be good. However, if they were doing something that someone else was good at, the results would not be half as good. Half was already an optimistic estimate. Igniting the stars in the sky, let alone half the time, even a fifth or a tenth of the time would be very long. Not to mention the effects. Lu Yin watched as the river of time flowed. In the distance, Zhao Ran calmly rowed a boat past him without disturbing him. Although Lu Yin's eyes were open, he was deep in thought. After a while, he released the starry sky in his heart, and the stars began to revolve. This was the cosmic art. In the past, he had felt that the Starry Fist and the cosmic art were similar in some ways. One was a fish technique that was cultivated by a civilization and did not focus on power. That was what Lu Yin felt. The cosmic art did not focus on power, but rather on speed and range. Both the Starry Fist and the cosmic art required a sky full of stars. He wondered if the cosmic art would be of any help to the Starry Fist. he continued to cultivate. Time continued to pass, and Lu Yin did not know how much time had passed. When he opened his eyes again, he was pleasantly surprised, but not much. The cosmic art had indeed increased the cultivation speed of the starry fist. Within the range of the cosmic art, he could see every inch of the stars, regardless of how far they were. When Lu Yin had first fused with the cosmic art stars that progenitor Qin had left behind, he had suppressed a powerful enemy and saved the blood progenitor. Back then, his strength had not reached that far, and he had relied on the cosmic art. Now, when he cultivated the starry fist, he used the cosmic art as a reference to see and immerse himself in the stars. He had improved, but the speed was not satisfactory. Lu Yin thought about it and decided to ask progenitor Qin for help. The cosmic art had been created by progenitor Qin, and his talent in cultivating battle techniques was unparalleled. Even Lu Yin did not dare to say that he could surpass progenitor Qin in terms of battle techniques. After leaving the Mirage domain, Lu Yin fused with the Tian Yuan universe and quickly found progenitor Qin. Progenitor Qin had never given up on searching for Wang Xiaoyu. Back then, he had been destroyed by the transparent balancer's sword. If not for his life force source protecting him, he would have been dead by now until Lu Yin used the Nirvana tree to revive him. However, that disaster had been a blessing in disguise, and progenitor Qin's power had soared to near the peak of bitter adversity under the Nirvana tree. Even now, he was still searching for Wang Xiaoyu. Lu Yin admired progenitor Qin's fearless spirit. He also wanted to focus on finding the transparent balancer, but what could he do even if he did? Perhaps it would be the same as progenitor Qin, a matter of one sword. Progenitor Qin's stubbornness seemed foolish, but this was who he was. Without this stubbornness, there would be no progenitor Qin who had been invincible all over the world. There would be no progenitor Qin who had guarded the burial garden for countless years just to comprehend and defeat the eternal battle technique. Starry Fist. Progenitor Qin was puzzled. Lu Yin said, "It's an absolutely invincible fist technique that can destroy a fishing civilization with one punch." Progenitor Qin was shocked, but he did not believe it. He was stubborn, but he was not stupid. Destroying a fishing civilization with one punch. How was that possible? The more he understood fishing civilizations, the more he knew that this was unrealistic. Progenitor Qin's fishing civilizations that had fought with human civilization destroyed with one punch. Black Apocalypse Civilization. 100 seals could seal Patriarch Shan. Mudwater Nation. Nib Luo's strength left a lingering fear. Immortal Plume Civilization. They had already escaped with their teleportation. Unknowns. What a joke. The transparent balancer that they were helpless against was just one of the unknowns. The unknowns were unfathomable. Perhaps only technological civilizations could be destroyed with one punch, but the premise was that their location could be found. Furthermore, they did not have any hidden ultimate weapons. Progenitor Qin knew the strength of fishing civilizations very well, so he did not believe it. Lu Yin was helpless. "I didn't believe it at first, but this is what Patriarch Shan said. I also went to the unknowns to verify it, so it should be true." Progenitor Qin's eyes lit up. "Okay, let's study it." In fact, he did not have any clues at all. He was just relying on his intuition. In the Mirage domain, Lu Yin released the starry sky in his heart and drew the astral fist manual in the starry sky. Progenitor Qin stood in the starry sky in Lu Yin's heart and looked at the astral fist manual. His body released the cosmic art. He also felt that there were similarities between the two. Further away, Qin Jian Yongxing was also brought here. After all, he was the inheritor of the starry fist. Chapter 44-48. Lu Yin looked at progenitor Qin. "Previously, I relied on the Big Dipper fish star left behind by my ancestors to comprehend the astral fist manual. Now, I'm using the Big Dipper fish star to help you comprehend it. Lu Yin clenched his right fist, and the Big Dipper fish star ignited within the astral fist manual as he punched out. Chen Jian Yongxing looked at the punch. This was the true fist intent of the Big Dipper. It was unknown which ancestor had left behind the power of the Big Dipper's remnant stars, but it was fundamentally different from them relying on the Big Dipper's remnant stars. When he looked at Lu Yin, it was as if he was looking at the Big Dipper fish star. Lu Yin punched out, and the fist intent blasted towards Progenitor Qin. Progenitor Qin stood still as the fist intent approached him. Chen Jian Yongxing's eyes widened. No, this couldn't possibly form the Big Dipper fish star. The Big Dipper fish star was the pinnacle of fist intent, and it had been left behind for countless years. This punch was clearly an offensive punch, so how could it leave behind a fist intent? Chen Jian Yongxing was about to remind him. Lu Yin punched out a second time, and the second fist intent was even faster as it approached the first fist intent. Then, there was a third, fourth, and fifth fist. Lu Yin punched out continuously until the moment the first fist intent was about to hit Progenitor Qin. All the fist intents fused together to form a solid fist intent in front of Progenitor Qin. The fist intent solidified and condensed into a star, the Big Dipper fish star. Chen Jian Yongxing was shocked. This could actually be done. This Lu Yin was only at the entry level of the astral fist, and he couldn't form a fish star that had been left behind since ancient times. However, he was able to fuse many fist intents together to form a fish star. How did he think of this? However, this fish star would quickly dissipate. Lu Yin had encountered more than one opponent who had used time stagnation to fuse battle techniques and explode with power, such as Chu Yuan's Time Realm and Gon Mo's Blood Blade. Thus, it was easy for him to come up with a solution. Progenitor Qin looked at the Big Dipper fish star that was right in front of him and took a step forward to collide with it. Chen Jian Yongxing was stunned. Shouldn't he be comprehending it? What was the meaning of this? Lu Yin hadn't punched him, and Progenitor Qin had collided with it. He suddenly felt that there was something wrong with the people from the three universes, and their thoughts were baffling. The surface of Progenitor Qin's body was constantly bombarded by the Big Dipper fist intent, but it could not stop him from entering the Big Dipper fish star. Lu Yin didn't use his full strength, only his fist intent. Otherwise, not to mention Progenitor Qin, even an Eternal Realm expert like Chen Jian would have been severely injured by his fist intent. His goal was to let Ancestor Qin comprehend it. On the surface of Progenitor Qin's body, his outer clothes exploded, revealing countless sword scars. This was the sword intent of the transparent balance envoy. Even with the Nirvana tree's rebirth, it could not be erased. Thunderous explosions continuously bombarded the surface of Progenitor Qin's body, but Progenitor Qin's eyes grew brighter and brighter. He saw every punch that Lu Yin threw out, saw the profound meaning of the Big Dipper fish star, and also saw the astral fist manual. His body abruptly pierced through the Big Dipper fish star, and in that instant, it was as if he could see Lu Yin's fist strike out again. This time, it pierced through his body and caused the astral fist manual to become clearer. He stood where he was and closed his eyes. Chen Jian Yongxing looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief. As expected, Progenitor Qin was blessed by the heavens when it came to battle techniques. If it was him, he might not be able to achieve enlightenment. The Big Dipper remnant star was left behind by the ancestor who had truly comprehended the starry sky fist. What he had struck out was merely the Big Dipper fist intent. Even so, Ancestor Qin was able to comprehend it. Lu Yin waited patiently for a long time before Progenitor Qin opened his eyes. He faced Lu Yin and punched out. Lu Yin's eyes widened. Good. He also punched out. With a loud bang, the two Big Dipper fist intents collided. The power wasn't great, but Chen Jian Yongxing was thoroughly shocked. He really comprehended it. What the hell, he could even comprehend it. How high was his talent? Qin Jian Yongxing had been spurred on by his masters to cultivate, but he still couldn't comprehend the astral fist manual. His master's cultivation of the starry sky fist far surpassed Master Lu's, but even so, he still couldn't comprehend it. Yet, this person had actually been enlightened by Master Lu. This was no longer something that could be explained by talent. What was going on with this guy? He actually didn't believe that progenitor Qin could comprehend it. But at this moment, his worldview was turned upside down. Lu Yin laughed. Congratulations, senior, for comprehending the starry sky fist. Progenitor Qin looked at his hands and was somewhat excited. This fist technique is good, very good. It's quite compatible with me, especially the cosmic art. Lu Yin nodded. Not bad. That's why I thought of you, senior. I hope that I can borrow senior's attainments in the cosmic art to help me cultivate the starry sky fist. He was actually just giving it a try. He wasn't sure if progenitor Qin could comprehend the astral fist manual, but he didn't expect progenitor Qin to actually comprehend it. It was a pleasant surprise. Progenitor Qin clenched his fist, loosened it, and clenched it again. This fist technique seems to be created for me. Does it belong to the sixth barrier? The sixth barrier, the strongest and invincible starry sky fist. How good would it be if I was born during the 9 strongholds era? Progenitor Qin muttered to himself. He then looked at Lu Yin and released the cosmic art. Lu Yin released the cosmic art at the same time. He directly ignored Qin Jian Yongxing and used the cosmic art and starry sky fist to test each other. Not only did Lu Yin want to increase the speed of cultivating the starry sky fist, but he also wanted to carve out his own path. Qin Jian Yongxing looked at the two cultivating and smiled happily. There was hope for the human race's inheritance. Masters, you can all rest in peace. If he couldn't do it, there would always be someone who could. In the long river of time, Xiaoran looked at Lu Yin and progenitor Qin and smiled as well. She then rowed the boat and hummed a song as she gradually left. Lu Yin deeply understood the saying that cultivation knew nothing about time. 1,000 years had passed. Of course, it was only 1,000 years in the Mirage domain. However, this was the longest time Lu Yin had ever spent cultivating a battle technique. Even 1,000 years didn't feel like a long time to him. On the contrary, his comprehension of the starry sky fist was becoming more and more confused. He only needed to light up the stars one by one, but the more he cultivated and the more he could see each star clearly with the cosmic art, the more he felt like he couldn't continue cultivating. It was as if there was a wall in front of him. Lu Yin was all too familiar with this feeling. How many years had he been building a wall of his heart? Before the wall of his heart could be built, the wall of the starry sky fist appeared in front of him. There was a contradictory feeling of helplessness. He was clearly moving forward, but he felt like he was moving backward. Compared to 1,000 years ago, his comprehension of the starry sky fist was even worse. Progenitor Qin stopped using the cosmic art and opened his eyes to look at Lu Yin. He frowned. It's useless to cultivate like this. The sixth barrier definitely doesn't cultivate the starry sky fist like this. Lu Yin looked at Qin Jian Yongxing. Senior, did your masters mention how to cultivate the starry sky fist? Qin Jian Yongxing recalled, because I've never comprehended the starry sky fist manual, my masters didn't say much. They only mentioned it before they died. The stars of civilization, the stars of man. Lu Yin was puzzled. The stars of civilization. The stars of man. Qin Jian Yongxing nodded. My masters didn't say much about this, so I forgot about it. I wouldn't have remembered if you hadn't mentioned it. Lu Yin looked at progenitor Qin. Progenitor Qin didn't understand either. He was extremely talented when it came to battle techniques, but this was clearly not just about battle techniques. It was more about civilization. Lu Yin sat cross-legged and closed his eyes, deep in thought. No one disturbed him. Progenitor Chen also closed his eyes and pondered about the starry sky fist. Chen Jian Yongxing hoped that Lu Yin could comprehend this sentence. However, no matter how talented Lu Yin was, he had never experienced the Nine Bases era. His masters had walked out of the Nine Bases era. If they couldn't express it clearly, how could Lu Yin comprehend it? Sometimes, the comprehension of certain words didn't depend on one's knowledge, but one's position. The understanding of a frog in a well was different from that of a swan. In terms of cultivation, Lu Yin had not achieved immortality and could not compare to Qin Jian Yongxing's masters. In terms of experience, he had never cultivated in the sixth stronghold. However, he was the current master of civilization. The moment he comprehended the Starry Sky Fist manual, he could see that this battle technique was more of a civilization's inheritance. He was thinking from the perspective of the master of civilization. On the other hand, Qin Jian Yongxing and his masters had always been thinking from the perspective of individual cultivators. The two of them had different perspectives and naturally saw different things. Lu Yin might not be able to comprehend it that easily, but it was not as impossible as Qin Jian Yongxing thought. After some time, Lu Yin opened his eyes and looked at progenitor Qin. The cultivation inheritance of the Starry Sky Fist has been lost. It's not possible to walk the path of our predecessors for the time being. So let's see if we can try to find our own path. How? Progenitor Qin asked. Lu Yin said, the Starry Sky Fist manual uses the stars as a fist. Then let's learn by observing the stars. The more you forget, the more you learn. Progenitor Qin praised, obtaining the inheritance, learning it, and breaking it. Especially when faced with such an invincible force, your courage is extraordinary. You are worthy of standing at the peak of human civilization. Lu Yin said helplessly, if there was a complete inheritance, I wouldn't want to do this either. I can only give it a try. With the Starry Sky Fist manual as the foundation and the Starry Sky Fist as the form, I hope to see that invincible punch again with your talent. Progenitor Qin laughed. You think too highly of me. I, Xia Shang, admit that my talent in battle techniques is rare, but I dare not say that I surpass the countless heroes of the Ninth Stronghold era. However, I still have the courage to give it a try. Lu Yin stood up. There's a planet called Earth. You can see the stars. The reason why I chose this place is because Earth is in a galaxy called the Milky Way. Milky Way. Progenitor Qin did not understand. Qin Jian Yongxing was shocked. Milky Way. Lu Yin looked at Qin Jian Yongxing. Unsurprisingly, Qin Jian Yongxing knew about the Milky Way. The Milky Way was the sixth stronghold's turbid treasure. Perhaps Qin Jian Yongxing did not understand what the turbid treasure meant, but he learned it from his masters. Chapter 44-49. Lu Yin brought progenitor Qin to the highest peak on Earth, allowing the planet to rotate as they watched the stars. To them, no matter where they stood, they could clearly see the stars in the sky. Just as Lu Yin had said, he had chosen Earth to get a good omen. 10 years passed, and Lu Yin was still looking at the stars. Earth had day and night, but their gazes transcended the heavens, and the stars never left their sight. Another 10 years passed, and Lu Yin was still looking at the stars. He looked at the stars that he was familiar with, hoping to incorporate them into the Astral Fist manual and find his own fist intent. 10 years after 10 years, 10 years after 10 years. It had been 40 years since they had arrived on Earth. On this day, meteors streaked across the sky, and the night sky was beautiful. Lu Yin's gaze returned to Earth, and he watched the meteor shower with countless Earthlings. Each meteor was like a fist intent that streaked across the sky. He hoped to grasp these fist intents, but they were not real. Every fist intent needed to be comprehended, and he could do it, but it would take a long time. He looked at Progenitor Chin, and he didn't know when it had started, but Progenitor Chin's aura had become incomparably calm. The fist intent that he had comprehended over 1,000 years had completely dissipated, but it had not disappeared. Instead, it had merged into the stars in the distance. What was that? These stars had originally come from Progenitor Chen and Sirius Art. In the past, Lu Yin had used these stars to defeat powerful enemies and save respected seniors. Now, these stars carried Progenitor Chen's fist intent, and they were connected to each other as they gradually spread throughout the entire sky. Lu Yin knew that Progenitor Chen had comprehended something. He had made the right choice in asking Progenitor Chen for help. Not only did Progenitor Chen possess an unparalleled talent for battle techniques, but he was also compatible with the stars in the sky. The Sirius Art that he had created had seamlessly merged with the astral fist. In Lu Yin's eyes, his astral fist manual had changed. The stars arranged themselves into a familiar starry sky, like a miniature Milky Way. They gradually floated, and finally, with Progenitor Chen at the center, the world spun. Progenitor Chen opened his eyes, raised his arm, and punched out. The stars lit up, and he followed up with another punch. The stars revolved and were constantly lit up. It was like the Sirius Art, but also the astral fist. With a bang, the starry sky trembled as numerous stars lit up. The might of Ancestor Chen's punches grew stronger and stronger, but the time it took for each punch to be unleashed grew longer and longer. 10 years, 20 years, 50 years went by, and more stars were lit up as Progenitor Chen continued to unleash his punches. The astral fist manual continued to expand and spread towards the outerverse. Lu Yin did not disturb him. He just watched as Progenitor Chen threw out countless punches. Right now, the power of a single punch from Progenitor Chen was enough to rival a limit expert below eternal immortality. Progenitor Chen was only in the primordial realm right now. He had relied on the Nirvana tree's cultivation method to cross realms and reach great perfection. The Nirvana tree technique was also a way for many experts in the three universes to challenge those of a higher realm. However, regular cultivators would only be able to challenge ordinary bitter tribulation experts as primordial realm experts at most. Those who were close to great perfection of bitter tribulation were on another level. Ancestor Chen did it, shocking countless people. Now, he had relied on his own comprehension of the astral fist to surpass great perfection of bitter tribulation, reaching the limit below eternal immortality. If he took another step forward, he would be a rogue. In the current human civilization, powerhouses like Qing Xing, Dan Hong, and the Great Master had once reached the limit below eternal immortality. They could use the eternal substance to fight, and they could use the Nirvana tree to reach the level of a rogue. However, they were all at the limit below eternal immortality. They were not like Progenitor Chen, who had crossed realms and reached the level of a rogue. There were very few people who could do this, and now, Progenitor Chen had appeared. Lu Yin was very certain that once Progenitor Chen set foot in bitter tribulation, he would be able to reach the level of a rogue with the Nirvana tree and the astral fist. Another 50 years passed before Progenitor Chen slowly pulled back his arm. He had punched for 110 years, and Lu Yin did not even bother to count how many stars he had lit up. This was Progenitor Chen's own astral fist manual, and the stars he had lit up were far from enough for the entire manual. However, Lu Yin was already satisfied. If Progenitor Chen could reach this step, it meant that he could completely light up his astral fist manual. When that time came, the power of his astral fist would be enough to make people look forward to it. At the same time, it also proved that this path could be taken. Progenitor Chen raised his head and looked at the sky for a long time before turning back to Lu Yin. My astral fist manual is completely different from the one you helped me to comprehend. Although I have walked my own path, this path is very narrow, so narrow that I can't breathe. Senior, what do you mean? Lu Yin did not understand. Progenitor Chen looked into the distance in a daze. I will do my best to widen this path, Anne. He paused for a moment. I am about to reach the level of bitter tribulation. Lu Yin was surprised and smiled. Congratulations, Senior. When I reach the level of bitter tribulation, we will test the astral fist together. I believe that I will have other insights by then, so you don't have to rush. Of course, we won't wait too long. When I reach the level of bitter tribulation, we will enter the mirage domain to test the astral fist together. It will be very quick. All right. Lu Yin understood. Progenitor Chen left Earth. Lu Yin did not know where he was going, but it must be related to bitter tribulation. He hoped that Progenitor Chen would be able to find his true bitter tribulation. Since he was on Earth, he might as well visit his old friends. With a sweep of his consciousness, he knew the situation on Earth like the back of his hand. Several old friends were there. Lu Yin teleported to Nanjing, where he found Zhou Shan watering the flowers in an antique courtyard. Zhou Shan had aged a lot since he had lived for thousands of years. His cultivation was actually very low, and if not for the resources he had used to forcefully raise his cultivation, he would not have been able to live until now. He looked weathered, but his mental state was good. Knock knock knock. Who is it? An old friend. Zhou Shan, who was watering the flowers in the courtyard, suddenly paused and looked up. Was this Lu Yin? He hurried over to open the door and saw Lu Yin. Lu Yin smiled at him. Long time no see. Zhou Shan looked at Lu Yin and was so excited that he did not know what to say. Please come in, quickly come in. Lu Yin smiled and walked into the courtyard. The courtyard was not large, and with Zhou Shan's status, he could have a courtyard of any size he wanted. He could even enter the above sky sect. However, he had spent his entire life on Earth and would not go anywhere. To him, material pursuits were a thing of the past, and memories were the most precious. Take a seat, I'll make some tea. Zhou Shan was busy, and Lu Yin did not stop him. He was very happy to see an old friend again. How long had it been since he had last met Zhou Shan? More than 2,000 years. Such a long time seemed like a lifetime to Zhou Shan, but to Lu Yin, it was very, very fast. It had been 170 years since he had entered Earth, and in the blink of an eye, 170 years had passed, but Lu Yin felt nothing. Time seemed fair, but it felt different for different people. He had come to Earth during this period and seen Zhou Shan, but he had not disturbed him. Compared to the last time they had met, Zhou Shan and his daughter Zhou Cixi had been rather reserved. Now that Lu Yin's status was higher, Zhou Shan was more relaxed, as if they were really old friends. Lu Yin was busy for a while before settling down. There was tea, snacks, and a booklet in front of Lu Yin. Lu Yin curiously picked up the booklet and flipped it open. It was filled with images of people. What's this? Zhou Shan said, I'm old, and I'm afraid I'll forget them, so I drew them out to reminisce. The booklet was filled with people he had encountered during Earth's apocalypse. Lu Yin recognized some of them, and some of them he did not. Some of them even held grudges. But to Zhou Shan, they were all memories. There was Li Hongliang, the strongest captain of Jinling's penal camp, Feng Hong, Luo Yun, Qin Xian, Wan Sha from the capital, Elder Lian, and so on. Lu Yin flipped through them one by one, his memories flowing and gradually becoming clearer. He had not forgotten these, but with thousands of years of memories and Lu Xiaoshuan's memories, there were many things that did not need to be remembered. Zhou Shan was different, he only had these memories. He had not left Earth much in his life, and these memories were extremely precious to him. He flipped to the last page. It was Zhou Cixi and many other members of the Zhou family. He had placed the genealogy with the people in his memories. Lu Yin put down the booklet, you can live for a long time. If nothing unexpected happens, the resources will be enough to push you to the level of an emissary. There's no need for this. Zhou Shan laughed and waved his hand. I rejected those resources. Why? It's good to live for a long time, but it's hard to watch old friends leave one by one. Zhou Shan smiled at Lu Yin. I'm really happy that you came to see me. I thought we would never meet again. Lu Yin picked up the teapot and poured tea for Zhou Shan. If it had been the Zhou Shan of 2,000 years ago, he might have felt somewhat restrained, but now he truly regarded Lu Yin as an old friend. Lu Yin took a sip of tea and looked at him. Do me a favor. Zhou Shan did not understand. What can I do for you? Lu Yin's voice was melancholic. Help me keep my memories. What do you mean? He's alive. Zhou Shan was taken aback. Is it helpful? Lu Yin nodded and looked him in the eye. Everyone has the right to choose between life and death. Your experience may have made you wish to face death normally, and I'm being selfish by doing this. But to me, if you live, then it means that my past is also alive. But you have many old friends around you. As time passes, even if Chapter 44:50. She died because of a celestial phenomenon. She could have lived as long as I did, or even longer. But she died. At that moment, my heart turned cold. I have descendants, but they are not CC. So many years have passed. I left Earth and went to the above heaven sect. I've seen the splendor of life, and I have no regrets. That's why I can face death and wait for the final moment. But this moment is a luxury for you. You will never be able to wait for a natural death. Lu Yin, I'm sorry. Lu Yin laughed. What's there to be sorry about? Zhou Shan closed his eyes. We are all under your protection, but you can't even choose your own death. We can die of old age. It's unfair to you. Lu Yin took another sip of tea. You think too much. Who wants to die if they can live? Immortality is everyone's goal. Zhou Shan put down his teacup. I'll try my best to live. As long as you need me, I'll hold on until the day you don't want to see me anymore. Ha ha ha. Lu Yin laughed. Zhou Shan laughed as well. Come, have a taste. This is the dessert I made. See if it's the same as Miss Long Shi's. Long Shi came here before. She sent me desserts. Let me try. It's not the same. It's not as good as Long Shi's. Really? I think it's about the same. Much worse. This was made by Long Shi. I couldn't bear to eat it last time and kept it until now. Lu Yin, not long after, Bai Shui came as well. She was the last person Zhou Shan could talk to on Earth. She also brought Shangqing. Lu Yin looked at Shangqing and then at Bai Shui. He was not surprised. They chatted for a while and mentioned Zhang Dingtian and the rest. Old Zhang and the rest went to Jupiter and never came back. It's been a long time, Zhou Shan said. Lu Yin was surprised. Jupiter. Why did they go there? Zhou Shan shook his head. Bai Shui said, my sister went there too. And that Lu Shaoge, Shangqing said. Lu Yin was surprised. Bai Qian is back. Bai Shui nodded. Bai Qian was an unforgettable name. Although she hadn't appeared many times, Lu Yin had always remembered her in his heart. They had worked together to scheme against hyperspace, but she had been captured by the Eternals. She had used the corpses of Eternal Realm cultivators to protect herself, and she had eventually disappeared without a trace. Even Lu Yin had not been able to find her back then. He didn't expect her to come back. Zhang Dingtian, Bai Qian, and Lu Shaoge had all gone to Jupiter. And they had all gone missing. How do you know that they're missing? Lu Yin asked. Zhou Shan said, I contacted the sect above the heavens, but they couldn't find him. Lu Yin looked at Jupiter and stood up. It's time for me to leave. I'll go take a look. Zhou Shan and the rest also stood up to bid Lu Yin farewell. After he left, Bai Shui looked at Zhou Shan. You've changed. Zhou Shan smiled and said, I have to find a time to go to the above heavens sect and ask for some resources so that I can live longer. Lu Yin teleported to Jupiter and saw a familiar altar. The only difference was that the stone on the altar had cracked. There were footprints in the surroundings, which probably belonged to Zhang Dingtian and the others. Why did they come here? Lu Yin walked around the altar but couldn't find the reason. The altar is dedicated to chaos. It was created before human civilization. Chaos had been the master of the Tian Yuan universe, and Earth had been destroyed every once in a while because of chaos power. Earth had also been the place where chaos lived. Now, Lu Yin didn't know where chaos was. Lu Yin had used the sphere to suppress chaos power and solve the problem of Earth's continuous destruction. Logically speaking, this matter should have come to an end. Unless chaos returned. But now, the sphere had cracked and Zhang Dingtian and the others had gone missing. What was the connection? Lu Yin pressed one hand on the altar and waved it casually. The starry sky trembled and the power of chaos dissipated. In the past, he had needed the sphere to suppress chaos power, but now, he could directly disperse it. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that even if chaos faced him, it would be difficult for him to threaten his life unless he had the strength of 3 universal laws. He wasn't afraid of chaos, let alone this power that had been left behind for countless years. After looking at the altar for a while, Lu Yin looked around the Tian Yuan universe and at the same time looked at the parallel universes, trying to find Zhang Dingtian and the others. After more than half a month, Lu Yin withdrew the sphere and couldn't find them. Zhang Dingtian and the others shouldn't be in the Tian Yuan universe, but where could they have gone? Jupiter had once been able to bring people to the cosmic tree because of the sourcebox array, but the cosmic tree was also a part of the Tian Yuan universe. Lu Yin could see that with a single glance, and Zhang Dingtian and the others' disappearance had nothing to do with the array. Could it be that this altar had the ability to send people to a certain place? He hadn't thought about it before. The sphere shattered, and whatever ability it contained disappeared. Lu Yin left Jupiter. Everyone had their own destiny, and he didn't force it. When it was time to appear, it would appear. A few years later, a string in the Tian Yuan universe vibrated. Lu Yin looked over and saw that progenitor Qin had stepped into the realm of bitter adversity. He relaxed and didn't ask what progenitor Qin's bitter adversity was. After progenitor Qin stabilized, Lu Yin brought him into the Mirage domain to continue cultivating the Starry Fist. This time, progenitor Qin's attainments and speed of the Starry Fist were completely different from before. He constantly lit up stars, which stunned Lu Yin. He had thought that Earth's speed of lighting up stars was already fast enough, but now, progenitor Qin was still continuing. Progenitor Qin's astral fist encompassed the entire outerverse, and at this moment, he had practically lit up all the stars in the outerverse. But it was still not enough. Halfway through, he left the Mirage domain and incorporated the Innerverse and Neoverse into the Astral Fist manual, continuing to light up stars. Lu Yin stood within progenitor Qin's Astral Fist manual and continuously moved towards the lit stars, hoping to find his own path. Time continued to pass, and they didn't know how long they had stayed in the Mirage domain. Perhaps it was 100 years, or perhaps 1,000 years. On this day, progenitor Qin used his own Starry Fist and circulated the Astral Fist manual. Starry Fist intent gathered as he punched towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin looked at progenitor Qin's fist and didn't dodge. He allowed progenitor Qin's fist to hit him, and he remained unscathed. Progenitor Qin didn't use the Nirvana trees technique to attack. His current starry fist was at most comparable to the peak of power below eternal life. If he used the Nirvana trees technique, he would be able to reach the level of a rogue, which was in line with Lu Yin's speculations. Furthermore, compared to Qing Xing and the other experts who had used the Nirvana tree to reach the level of a rogue, progenitor Chen had more space. His starry fist was far from perfection, and he had just stepped into bitter adversity. Once he reached the peak of bitter adversity or even the peak of power below eternal life, his strength would definitely surpass that of ordinary eternal life realm cultivators. He would become an existence that was close to Lu Yin's. How is it? Progenitor Chen asked. He was using this fish to enlighten Lu Yin. He hoped that he could help Lu Yin find his own path. Lu Yin shook his head. He had seen progenitor Chen's starry fist, and he could use the serious art. However, he always felt that it wasn't his own. If progenitor Chen could find his own path, why couldn't Lu Yin do the same? The starry fist and the astral fist manual were their foundations, and progenitor Chen had used them to find his own path. Lu Yin had achieved his goal. He had seen how progenitor Chen had found his own path, which had been his original goal. He wanted to use progenitor Chen's innate gift to see how this path worked. Now, progenitor Chen had walked out. He was still in the same spot. Perhaps you and I are fundamentally different, progenitor Chen said. His tone was low as he looked at Lu Yin. I created the serious art. You want to use the serious art, but you also want to use me to find your own starry fist. In that case, you will only obtain my understanding of the starry fist, not yours. I told you that the starry fist I comprehended is too narrow. It's so narrow that I can't breathe. Obtain the inheritance, learn the inheritance, and break the inheritance. I did it, and you can do it too. Lu Yin and progenitor Chen looked at each other. Narrow. Progenitor Chen nodded, his gaze heavy. Yes, narrow. This is how I feel about my starry fist. It's like being trapped in a cage. Although the cage is huge, there is an upper limit. Lu Yin's eyes widened. A cage, an upper limit. He took a step out and left the mirage domain. He stepped into the Tianyuan universe and looked at the sky and the stars. That's right, this was a cage. Who said that the starry fist needed to light up the stars? The Big Dipper remnant star had given Lu Yin the astral fist manual, allowing him to see the path of the starry fist. It needed to light up the stars, but the stars might not necessarily be the stars. He thought of Patriarch Shan's star-toed star-plucking hand. It plucked the stars, but it could use civilization as the stars. It plucked the square inch and unleashed a terrifying attack that could overturn everything. In that case, could he use civilization as the stars? Lighting up civilization was lighting up the stars? There was an upper limit to the universe, but there was no upper limit to the square inch. They had told themselves countless times that the square inch was vast and that they must know their limits. However, they had forgotten that this vast civilization could also be used by them. Thinking of this, he teleported to the top of the mother tree and looked at the square inch. Since using the universe as the astral fist manual was very narrow, then he would use the square inch as the astral fist manual. Who could say that there was an upper limit to the boundless square inch? If he could really reach the upper limit, then he himself would have become the upper limit. Within the mirage domain, progenitor Chen sighed. Lu Yin's cultivation talent was definitely not below his own, and he had been able to comprehend the way out with just a few words. This was also the reason why he had asked progenitor Chen to help him cultivate the astral fist. This child's talent was extremely high, and he had a good eye for people. He was vicious and merciless, but he was also responsible. Perhaps the calamities that human civilization had experienced had been waiting for such a person to appear. Progenitor Chen had opened up a path for Lu Yin, and he hoped that the path that Lu Yin walked would help him gain enlightenment. The mother tree was huge and tall, but no matter how tall it was, it could not surpass the entire Tianyuan universe. Lu Yin stood on the mother tree and used his mirroring technique to look at the square inch in the distance, but he could not take it into his heart. The astral fist manual was the fist manual of the stars, the fist manual of the heart. The bigger one's heart was, the wider the world was. This was not a technique of the heart, but of the heart's spirit. It was boldness and fearlessness. Even if it was impossible for an ant to swallow the heavens, the heart spirit would still surpass the heavens. If the heart spirit could be used one day, then it would shake the world. At this moment, Lu Yin's heart spirit wished to transform into the astral fist manual. He wanted to take the countless civilizations within the square inch into the astral fist manual. Even if he was an ant, he still wanted to reign over the world. Chapter 44-51. But how could he achieve that? That devouring heaven aura in his chest was just his spirit, and without a stage to display it, he would still be an ant. A stage. He needed a stage to display his spirit and devour the heavens. Lu Yin stood there quietly as the days passed. No one disturbed him, and he forgot about his surroundings and everything else. He forgot that he wanted to cultivate the starry fist and the astral fist manual. The only thing in his mind was the universe's civilizations that he had seen through the mirroring technique and the coordinates of the civilizations that Lu Yuan and the others had drawn up. He felt his body sinking into the star chart. The coordinates of the civilizations were clearly close, but they seemed so far away to him. They were unimaginably far away, as if he would never be able to get close to them. He felt like he was being swallowed into some sort of vortex. Suddenly, Lu Yin opened his eyes. No, he shouldn't be being swallowed. It wasn't him that was being swallowed, but rather the entire world, the star chart, and the various civilizations that he had seen. He looked up and spread out his arms. It was as if he was floating in a vast sea of stars. He slowly raised his arms and fiddled with the universe, causing ripples to ripple out and shake the heavens. It was as if the various civilizations were shaking as well. At that moment, the Tianyuan universe was swaying. Countless people panicked, not understanding what was happening. Fortunately, Mr. Mu had appeared in time and asked the above heaven sect to calm everyone down. They knew that Lu Yin had done it, but they didn't know what exactly he was doing. It felt as if the Tianyuan universe, no, the three universes, had become a small boat that was drifting on the ocean. Lu Yin's palm moved horizontally, causing ripples to spread out. He looked at them and saw that they were like shooting stars. They were very familiar, as if he had seen them on Earth before. These shooting stars continued to travel into the distance, constantly moving towards the civilizations that were just inches away. However, it was not enough. Heaven and earth were different, and his heaven and earth could not reach the civilizations' heaven and earth. Even if he could destroy civilizations, he could not be their equal. He was still a living being. Since he could not be their equal, then he would make his civilization equal. Around him, Lu Yin's body rippled as he released his willpower and combined it with the Tianyuan universe. An incomparably huge silhouette of Lu Yin appeared in the Tianyuan universe. Many cultivators were familiar with this scene, as it had appeared when the insectoid hive had attacked. The huge silhouette seemed to have grasped the heaven's origin universe in its palm. It was a colossus that lay horizontally. Using the power of will to fuse with the universe, oneself as the civilization, and in the distance, the civilization as the stars, the map of the stars as the chart, and the distance as the star fist manual. What he needed to light up was not the stars, but the civilizations. Sirius Gong could not connect to civilization, but willpower could. The constellation Atlas expanded infinitely and then shrunk infinitely. Stars floated in the sky, representing civilizations. It was exactly the same as the distance of the 300-year-old eternal life stage experts that Patriarch Lu Yuan and the others had drawn, with the three universes as the center. With the power of will as the link and the star chart as the guide, they formed the starry fist that only Lu Yin could cultivate. Progenitor Chen used the Tian Yuan universe as his blueprint to light up the endless stars. Therefore, he felt that it was narrow. The Tian Yuan universe was only so big. Even if he lit up all the stars, he would still be in a cage. However, Lu Yin was different. His astral fist manual could be as large as his core space. The first star that Lu Yin lit up for his own civilization was the spiritualized universe. He understood spiritualized universes all too well, and with a single punch, the spiritualized universe and the astral fist manual went from dim to bright. The entire process seemed very fast to Lu Yin, but he did not know that this process lasted for a very long time. This was because what he wanted to light up was not just a spiritualized universe, but all the endless stars within it. In the end, the endless stars would replace the spiritualized universe in being lit up. It was not only the civilization stars that were lit up, but it was also the civilization stars that were lit up. Next was the nine heavens universe. Lu Yin punched out once again. This punch lasted for 2 years, which was much slower than lighting up the spiritualized universe because the nine heavens universe was much larger and more complicated. After that was the consciousness universe, which was much faster and lit up in less than half a month. After that was the spirit universe. Within the three universes, there was more than one universe that had been rebooted. These universes were all included in the astral fist manual and had to be lit up one by one. Lu Yin's fist intent did not affect the three universes, but anyone who faced it directly would feel a terrifying fist force that was even stronger than the Big Dipper fist intent. The Big Dipper fist intent was a dead fist intent that had lost the person who had lit it up. On the other hand, Lu Yin's starry fist was a living fist intent that was constantly boiling and expanding. It crossed an endless distance, and its power continued to skyrocket. Unknowingly, 30 years had passed. During these 30 years, Lu Yin had been striking out with his fist intent, lighting up the civilizations that had once been destroyed in the three universes. When all the civilizations in the three universes had been lit up, Lu Yin struck out with his final punch. This punch traversed the three universes and hit the starry sky. It pushed the void horizontally and shattered inch by inch. Mr. Mu, the ancient god, Shangyu of the Wonder Gate, and the other eternal realms were shocked and looked into the distance. They all felt the power of this punch. Ba Rong was dumbfounded. This punch gave him the illusion that he would be beaten into a dried fish. He knew very well that he would not be able to withstand this punch. It was too terrifying. That monster. He was clearly not even an eternal realm, but he was actually able to strike out with such a terrifying and violent punch. In the Tianyuan universe, Progenitor Chen laughed. He knew that Lu Yin had finally embarked on his own cultivation path of the Starry Fist. It was only a matter of time before the Starry Fist became extremely powerful. He would definitely be inspired by this and expand the narrow Starry Fist. At the top of the mother tree, Lu Yin stood still and looked at the starry sky calmly. This punch was currently the strongest punch he could unleash. Its power might be close to the tricolor godly power transformation. The Starry Fist was filled with infinite possibilities. He was not wrong. This was the power of civilization, a fist of inheritance. However, inheritance did not mean that one could not be invincible. The stronger the civilization, the stronger the individual. With the mind of square inch, one would naturally be invincible. Although it would take a long time to light up one civilization after another, there would eventually be a day when one would be invincible. In theory, the Starry Fist could really reach the level of invincibility. He thought of the ancestor who had destroyed a fishing civilization with a single punch. Did that ancestor also use the mind of square inch to create the Starry Fist manual? How long had he been cultivating? He really wanted to see the power of that punch. The starry fish belonged to the sixth stronghold. In theory, it was invincible. Then, he suddenly remembered that Yu had said that the fifth stronghold had an invincible technique called heart affinity. Did that mean that there were similar invincible techniques in the other strongholds? Since it was called an invincible technique, it was also theoretically invincible. The starry fish could do it, but the others could not. Otherwise, the ninth base would not have been destroyed. If someone could recreate the ninth base's invincible technique and pass it down, humans would really be able to dominate the mind of Square Inch. He smiled at the dark starry sky. He was thinking too much. Even the ninth base could not do it, let alone now. Human civilization should be at its lowest point in history. The upper limit was locked, and enemies were everywhere. He had to stabilize himself first. Lu Yin closed his eyes and stood quietly on the mother tree. He calmed his heart and was as still as a mountain. One day, a few years later, Patriarch Lu Yuan suddenly came looking for him. An eternal realm from the divine realm civilization is coming toward us. Lu Yin opened his eyes. Let's see. Not long after, he and Patriarch Lu Yuan stood in the mind of Square Inch and looked into the distance. Beyond the speed of an eternal realm expert, a ball of light was rushing toward them at the speed of an ordinary eternal realm expert. It was a ball of light with dots and lines. The dots of light were constantly rotating like balls of thread. That was a creature from the divine realm civilization. At first glance, creatures from the divine realm civilization looked similar to the battleships of technological civilizations, but they were far smaller. Others did not know the characteristics of creatures from the divine realm civilization, but Lu Yin knew that they were fundamentally different from the light of technological civilizations. There are 15 gods in the divine realm civilization. This should be an existence that reached the eternal realm with absolute means. Its strength is not strong, Lu Yin said. Patriarch Lu Yuan nodded. But it's heading in our direction. That's not right. Lu Yin thought for a moment. I previously guessed that the divine realm civilization had never moved in our direction before because it was unknown. But this guy came over to prove that I guessed wrong. If it was because it was unknown, they still shouldn't be coming over now. You mean? Patriarch, other than us, who else is in this direction? Patriarch Lu Yuan blurted out, the seven treasures heavenly toad. Lu Yin nodded. The seven treasures heavenly toad clan's territory is moving, but it's moving very slowly. It's probably in this direction. In the past, I didn't think of it because the seven treasures heavenly toad clan's territory was very far from here when it was destroyed. But now that I think about it, perhaps the divine realm civilization had planned to move in this direction back then, but they happened to encounter the seven treasures heavenly toad clan, so they stopped. Now, they're suddenly here again because the seven treasures heavenly toad clan's territory has been destroyed. They should have been monitoring the seven treasures heavenly toad clan all this time. Patriarch Lu Yuan frowned. What about the unknown? Lu Yin said, this divine realm civilization definitely knows about the unknown, but they don't understand it. They're also a civilization that uses the unknown. Of course, these are all guesses. It's actually meaningless. Now, we have to deal with this guy. From the looks of it, its destination is very likely where the seven treasures heavenly toad clan used to be, not us. But the seven treasures heavenly toad clan is not far from us, Patriarch Lu Yuan said. For an eternal realm expert, 50 years passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Yin looked into the distance. To them, this pseudo-eternal realm expert was very weak. In terms of strength, it was at most similar to the hexagonal monster they had encountered for the first time. But that was compared to them. If it was compared to most civilizations without an eternal realm expert, this guy would be a disaster. The reason why the Divine Realm civilization could become a fishing civilization was because they had forcibly brought out more than 10 pseudo-eternal realm experts with absolute means. This was a very exaggerated number. Unless they encountered a rogue like Luin, whose strength could crush a pseudo-eternal realm expert, even if they encountered an unknown, the unknown would not want to deal with them. Karma binding was not a joke. They were similar to the Muddy Kingdom. One was a designated karma binding, while the other was a karma binding that relied on quantity. In any case, they were both disgusting to a true eternal realm expert. But they were not disgusting to a rogue. End of this chapter. Chapter 44-52. Let's wait. Let me confirm the other matter first before I decide how to deal with it. Lu Yin asked Patriarch Lu Yuan to keep an eye on this fellow while he himself continued to teleport in the direction of Delight City. If one were to look at the entire square inch, it would be equivalent to Lu Yin bypassing this eternal life realm expert and approaching the Divine Realm civilization. He stopped and raised his head. 6 pips appeared on the die and he tapped it. What he wanted to confirm was that Lu Qing and the Divine Realm had started a war. As long as they started a war, the Eternal Realm expert who was close to the 3 universes could be dealt with at will. If they didn't start a war and avoided each other, then he had to think of a way. He couldn't let the human civilization become the target of the Divine Realm. Several months later, Lu Yin finally fused with the body of one of the skeletal life forms in Delight City. During this time, he had fused with the body of a Chu, and he had also fused with a life form from a civilization that was similar to the Chu. Just like before, he was courting death, as he could not allow that life form to lead the death universe over. Lu City's route did not change, and it still headed in the direction of the Divine World civilization. The power of death that Lu Yin had left behind was very close to the Divine World civilization, and it ensured that Lu Kuo would encounter the Divine World civilization at the same time that the power of death disappeared. 300 years had already passed. In less than 200 years at most, they would encounter it. At that time, he wanted to see Lu Gu's exhausted strength, hoping that it could withstand the most powerful Divine King of the Divine World civilization. Plop, the water splashed, and a familiar voice sounded, "Brother, want to form a band?" Lu Yin looked at it strangely. It was this fishbone again. How persistent was it? "You haven't formed a band yet?" "Yes, there are quite a few members, but I kicked them all out. None of them have any musical talent. What a waste of my ability." Fishbone jumped on the river. "I see that you are very talented in music, brother. Let's go together. I can take you into the castle." "How do I enter?" Lu Yin asked quietly. Fishbone said, "Of course it's to conquer the other bands with our music." Lu Yin thought that it was going to take him into the sewers again, but with the previous 2 lessons, he wouldn't do that again. It was pointless, and he would always be discovered. "I don't have musical talent." "You do." "I really didn't." "Believe me, you really do." "Where are the other members?" "You agreed." "You're not worthy." "You go." Lu Yin withdrew from the fusion and rolled his die again. He hoped that he would be able to fuse with Yu Gu's body. At the very least, Yu Gu had snuck into the castle more than once and might know something. This fishbone was not weak. Even someone at the level of a crossing calamity had been crushed by the sound pressure, but the fishbone remained unscathed. In that case, Lu Yin could more or less guess the brightness of the ball of light that it represented. Hopefully, it would be able to fuse into the fish's body. Time passed as he rolled the die again and again. Soon, another few decades had passed. Over the years, Lu Yin had fused with too many skeletons from Joy City. Even though there were countless skeletons, Lu Yin had only fused with those with decent strength, which allowed him to gain a deep understanding of these skeletons. He knew that outside the castle, the strongest skeleton creature was Zhou. Zhou was very likely the strongest creature under Lugu Ku Jin's command. Aside from Zhou and Lugudu's subordinates, there were two other Eternal Realm skeletons outside the castle. One of them was an Eternal Realm expert from a civilization that Lu Yin had personally witnessed being destroyed by him, while the other had existed a long time ago. Many skeletons knew that it was Rou Yuzhou who had left that Eternal Realm expert in Lu City. That was captured by Rou Yuzhou, and it was very likely the Eternal Realm expert who had escaped from the Devouring Seal civilization. This was only the situation outside the castle. Inside the castle, most of the skeletons did not understand. Lu Yin could only speculate based on their thoughts that there was more than one Eternal Realm expert. One of the members of Lugu Ku Jin's band was an Eternal Realm expert, and he did not seem weak. This information sent chills down Lu Yin's spine. How many Eternal Realm experts were there? Including Lugu Ku Jin, there were at least 5 Eternal Realm experts in Lu City. What a terrifying number. One had to know that there were 7 Abyss of the Death Universe, and Lugu Ku Jin was only one of them. Based on this calculation, there were more than 30 Eternal Realm experts in the Death Universe. It was not impossible. The Death Universe's combat style was destined to allow them to obtain more Eternal Realm experts. They did not kill Eternal Realm experts at all. Instead, the bone language gave them life. They did not increase their karmic restraints and could even bring Eternal Realm experts to the Death Universe. This was a rather terrifying method, even more terrifying than the Divine World civilization. Although the skeletons that were given life were far less powerful than the original ones, they were still Eternal Realm experts. They had a consistent pattern, and their strength surpassed the pseudo-Eternal Realm experts in the Divine World civilization. There were only about 10 pseudo-Eternal Realm experts in the Divine World civilization, but there were many more in the Death Universe. In particular, Rou Yuzhou had deliberately split to capture Eternal Realm experts. The number of Eternal Realm experts in the Death Universe might be much more than he thought. Lu Yin's heart was heavy. Although numbers did not necessarily mean that they were the strongest, at least they could make people hesitate. The karmic restraints were enough to give people a headache. The Death Universe, the Unknown, and the Immortal Plume were all extremely powerful. His previous attempt was correct. If he wanted to get out of this encirclement, he had to find another way. Lu City was quite close to the Divine World civilization. It could be said that if any Eternal Realm expert appeared in that direction, they could collide at any time. Under normal circumstances, the two civilizations would inevitably meet within 100 years. Lu Yin returned to the 3 universes, brought progenitor Qin, Qing Xing, and Dan Ho, and headed towards Patriarch Lu Yuan. It was time for them to practice. He could not be the only scoundrel in the human civilization. Within the space of a square inch, the light continued to move in one direction. Occasionally, it would shoot out specks of light like road signs. If one looked closely, they would find that each speck of light was made up of countless smaller specks of light, and those smaller specks of light were made up of even smaller specks of light. They continued to shrink until they could no longer be seen clearly. Countless specks of light that were difficult to see with the naked eye spread out. From afar, the light did not seem large, but in reality, the specks of light were constantly spreading. Right in front of them, 3 figures stood tall. They were progenitor Qin, Dan Ho, and Qing Xing. Qing Xing drank a mouthful of wine, his eyes drowsy. He did not really want to fight, but he had been dragged over by Patriarch Lu. Dan Ho waited calmly with a gentle expression. Progenitor Qin also looked calm, but there was a burning passion in the depths of his eyes. When he had faced that sword back then, no matter how he resisted, he had almost been obliterated. That casual sword had the power of an Eternal Realm expert. Now, he also had the confidence to face an Eternal Realm expert. Although it was a very ordinary Eternal Realm expert, he had just passed bitter adversity. Qing Xing looked at progenitor Qin and asked, "You are Xia Shang, right?" Progenitor Qin and Qing Xing looked at each other and nodded silently. Qing Xing said, I have heard of your legend. I have always been curious. Is there any drawback to the 9 clones technique? For example, the 9 personalities. Dan Ho frowned. Qing Xing, you have crossed the line. Qing Xing did not care. Xia Shang won't mind. Progenitor Qin did not mind. Having 9 personalities is a drawback. If you don't practice it well, you will easily be devoured. Dan Ho said, you don't have to answer him. Qing Xing smiled. I heard that Progenitor Qin has an invincible spirit, and it is true. It doesn't matter if you say it out loud. Just like me, because of the flaw in Master's dead heart state, I can't break through to the eternal realm. It doesn't matter. Dan Ho looked at Qing Xing, you may be able to break through to the eternal realm. Qing Xing drank a mouthful of wine. I know my own situation. Among the 3 of us, only Xia Shang can break through. Progenitor Qin looked at Dan Ho. She can't break through. He had heard of Dan Ho's name. She was the god of defense of the 9 clouds universe and was respected by everyone. Dan Ho did not say much. It's coming. Get ready. Actually, it's good that I can't break through. What's the point of being bound by karma? It's more interesting to be a rogue. Qing Xing put away the wine jug. Her eyes turned cold, and she rushed out. The airflow rushed into the starry sky and spread in all directions. She merged the nirvana tree and used the chaotic ancient energy art. In front of them, the eternal realm from the divine world civilization had already noticed them, but it did not care. If one did not reach the eternal realm, he would be an ant. It was curious about what these 3 ants were doing there. It did not think that they were waiting for it. In its mind, it could detect them, but they could not detect it in advance. However, Qing Xing's sudden attack startled it. The first airflow rushed into the sky. It did not feel anything, but when the nirvana tree merged and the chaotic ancient energy art completely erupted, it felt a sense of crisis. This creature could make it feel a sense of crisis even though it was not in the eternal realm. What about the other 2? Specks of light swept toward the airflow. Boom! The starry sky expanded and tore apart. Qing Xing was forced to retreat. As expected of an eternal realm expert. Pill after pill shot towards the light. Pill techniques fuse time and space to forge pills. The nirvana tree technique allowed the pill puppets to rise to a new level. Countless pills exploded, causing the light to retreat a little. It wasn't that it was suppressed, but rather that it was apprehensive. Qing Xing and Dan Ho's attack made the light uneasy. How could 2 creatures that could fight against an eternal realm expert suddenly appear? Could it be that they were scoundrels? Impossible. How could there be so many scoundrels? Just as it thought of this, a huge heaven and earth furnace appeared. Ancestor Qin attacked, wanting to burn the light with the furnace. However, the furnace was shattered as soon as it was formed. There was nothing it could do. This was the eternal realm. Even the most ordinary eternal realm expert was not something that ordinary cultivators could challenge. In the distance, Lu Yin and Ancestor Lu Yuan were watching. Without using the nirvana tree and starry fist, Ancestor Chen's threat to the eternal realm expert was much lower than Qing Xing and Dan Ho. Are you sure Xia Shang is qualified to challenge the eternal realm expert? He is not you. You were only an ancestor when you first encountered the hexagonal eternal realm monster. Ancestor Lu Yuan sighed. Lu Yin said, he is qualified. It's just that he hasn't used his full strength yet. Qing Xing and Dan Ho can at most remain undefeated if they work together. It seems that they can use the nirvana tree to increase their destructive power to the eternal realm. However, it is still not the eternal realm. How difficult was it for you to reach the level of a scoundrel? It is not easy for a scoundrel to appear, Ancestor Lu Yuan said. Lu Yin recalled the past. Yes, it was not easy for a scoundrel to appear. Qing Xing was an extreme powerhouse below the eternal realm. With the help of the Nirvana tree, he could reach the level of an eternal realm expert. However, it did not mean that he could defeat an eternal realm expert. Only those who had killed an eternal realm expert could be called a scoundrel. Even if it was this fake eternal realm expert. End of chapter. Chapter 44-53. Qing Xing couldn't win in a one-on-one battle, and even Dan Hong was slightly weaker than him. Whether they could win this battle depended on Progenitor Qin. Lu Yin was looking forward to Progenitor Chen's starry fist giving everyone a surprise. The battle continued as Qing Xing, Dan Hong, and Progenitor Qin continued to attack. The Divine Realm life form also erupted with Eternal Life Realm power. The three used the Nirvana tree's techniques to encircle and force their way in, but they were also careful. We can't go on like this. I know everyone has their own trump cards, so I'll go first. Qing Xing shouted as he raised his arms and pushed against the light. Endless airflow filled the sky like a wave that swept through the stars, causing space to shake and tremble. The light scattered and turned into a cone that shot towards Qing Xing. Be careful, Dan Hong warned. They had just dealt with the Eternal Life Realm life form, and their attacks had all come from those light spots. They couldn't be seen or touched, but they could fuse with the Eternal Life Realm. Each light spot was like a strengthened Eternal Life Realm life form, and it brought them a terrifying sense of danger. The light spots entered the airflow and floated about, ready to scatter at any moment. However, more light spots were added, causing the cone to grow larger and closer to Qing Xing. There was no way Qing Xing would be able to withstand this attack. As the cone approached, Qing Xing felt as if heaven and earth no longer existed in his eyes. Only the airflow whizzed past, bringing out the light and plunging him into darkness. Endless airflow formed a spiral that revolved around him. He raised his hand and struck out. Dan Hong watched intently. Hand strike, kick, sweep, arm stab, waist strike, back strike, heavy head strike, black eye. This is the chaotic 8 styles. In the past, Qing Xing had only been able to use the chaotic 6 styles. Now, with the help of the Nirvana tree, he was able to use the chaotic 8 styles. The chaotic 8 styles was a consummate technique that could allow one to enter the chaotic era and travel between the past and the present. Translator, Transin editor, Transin 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 in the distance, Lu Yin raised his brows. He had exchanged blows with Qing Xing the first time they had met, and Qing Xing's ancient chaos technique had shocked the 9 heavens. After that, he had used the ancient chaos 8 styles to forcefully clash with Tian Ho's physical body, forcing Tian Ho to retreat. Tian Ho was the strongest of the 4 insect lords, and even Lu Yin had found it difficult to defeat him. And that was only the chaotic ancient 6 stances. At this moment, the chaotic ancient 8 stances were fully displayed. That finger directly broke the cone, and it was now Qing Xing's turn to chase after the light. His finger stirred up the airflow, and everything was in chaos. The gray time was flowing, and it was constantly approaching the light. The beam of light from the God world retreated, staring at the finger. It was incredibly powerful. Scoundrel, that's right, this person has the strength of a scoundrel. Otherwise, how could he unleash such an attack? However, this finger alone wasn't enough to defeat it. Countless specks of light merged around the light, constantly condensing and expanding. It was as if the light itself was constantly expanding, and from a distance, it looked like a light vortex. Qing Xing attacked, unleashing a vortex of airflow. The peak attack of the ancient Chaos 8 stances met the light vortex. This finger entered the light, causing the airflow to tremble. Step by step, Qing Xing walked towards the light, wanting to get closer. However, he was slowly diverted by the vortex, and he was forced to move along with it. Qing Xing's face paled, and he shouted, "This isn't an ordinary vortex, it's that light. It's a vortex of eternal matter, and it's forcefully changing my direction with so much eternal matter." He was saying this for Dan Hong and Progenitor Qin to hear. This was his strongest attack, but it couldn't reach the light. His body kept shifting, and he got closer and closer to the light, but his angle kept changing. Suddenly, the light above Qing Xing's head condensed into the shape of a cone, and it fell from above, wanting to pierce through him. At that moment, Dan Hong attacked. "Actually, I don't have any trump cards. I just have a lot of pills, so I'll blast away as much as I can." Boom! 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 Pills kept exploding. Although Dan Hong looked gentle and quiet, her fighting style left Lu Yuan speechless. Why did it feel like she was more violent than anyone else? Lu Yin was disappointed. Dan Hong's talent in fighting was far inferior to Qing Xing's, let alone Progenitor Qin. However, she wasn't good at fighting, and reaching her current level of cultivation was already her peak. He looked at Progenitor Qin. It was time to make a move. Countless pills bombarded the light, giving Qing Xing a chance to escape the vortex. He knew when to stop. He stepped back and smiled bitterly. "I thought it was too simple. I thought that Master Lu could kill Eternal Realm experts like child's play. It wasn't that difficult to be a scoundrel. Only when I fought with Eternal Realm experts did I realize how dangerous it was." "That's not what you said before," Dan Hong glanced at him and said. Qing Xing shrugged, "You're too arrogant. We can't win. Let's see what happens next." Dan Hong didn't care about winning or losing, but she didn't stop bombarding. Suddenly, a dazzling light enveloped the surroundings in the blink of an eye, including Qing Xing, Dan Hong, and even Progenitor Qin. The light continued to spread. At the same time, the pills that Dan Hong had thrown out all stopped, and the entire sky was filled with light spots. In the distance, Progenitor Lu Yuan was astonished. "This is an invisible world." Lu Yin was speechless. "This can be seen. So it's not an invisible world formed by the laws of the universe? No, it's just this creature's own strength. Even if it doesn't use the laws of the universe, the creature's own characteristics and the eternal matter can still reach this step. This is why this civilization is called a fishing civilization." "Then how do we break through?" "Save someone." Lu Yin said, "Not yet. At the very least, let Progenitor Qin unleash that punch." The light vortex grew bigger and bigger, and the creature from the Divine Realm civilization had yet to use the laws of the universe. Progenitor Qin moved, releasing the serious art. Countless stars rotated as he stared at the light and punched out. In an instant, countless stars lit up, and the universe collapsed under this punch. The serious art and the astral fist manual overlapped, and it was as if a starry sky had descended, accompanied by the power of the punch, and fiercely attacked the light. Qing Xing and Dan Ho's expressions changed drastically. This punch. The light also faced Progenitor Qin for the first time. Before this, Progenitor Qin's attack was less threatening than Qing Xing and Dan Ho's, so it did not care. Now, it only had eyes for Progenitor Qin and this punch. This punch distorted the light vortex and forcefully entered it. With the activation of the serious art, it forcefully stopped the light vortex from rotating. The terrifying fist intent was unstoppable. Even if the light used the laws of the universe, outsiders could not see what the laws were before it was broken by Progenitor Qin's punch. The sixth barrier, the Taios Starry Fist. Progenitor Qin had comprehended his own starry fist. He punched the light and penetrated it. Behind the light, a dark and deep mark was left in the starry sky. In an instant, the light that covered the starry sky scattered. The light flickered, and the light that was constantly rotating in his body trembled, trying to repair the hole in his body. Qing Xing and Dan Ho looked at Progenitor Qin in shock. Was this the second Lu master? From what they knew, only Lu Yin could fight against those below the immortal realm with his primordial realm cultivation. When he reached the bitter adversity stage, he could kill ordinary immortal realm experts and become a rogue. Now, Progenitor Chen's punch had suppressed that immortal realm expert. It could be said that he was definitely at the level of a rogue. And this person was only at the bitter adversity stage. They were at the peak of the immortal realm, and there was a huge gap between their realms. The human civilization had a second rogue. In the distance, Progenitor Lu Yuan sighed and smiled bitterly. I didn't expect to be surpassed by a junior. Lu Yin smiled. Progenitor, I'm also a junior. That's right, Progenitor Lu Yuan was happy. If Progenitor Qin could surpass them, it meant that the human civilization's strength was constantly increasing. He did not feel bad because his generation was destined to embark on the path to immortality. The ancient gods were the first to take the path, but they would not be the last. Even if not all of them reached the immortal realm, at least a few would succeed. As for himself, teleportation was enough. Even if Progenitor Chen's punch surpassed his, as long as he had teleportation, it was hard to say who would win. Lu Yin disappeared and reappeared not far from Progenitor Qin. He smiled. Congratulations, Progenitor Qin, for stepping into the rogue level. Sirius retracted around Progenitor Chen's body, and he looked at Lu Yin. There's still a lot of room for improvement. Lu Yin nodded. Let's verify it later. This is a true path to invincibility. Okay. Progenitor Qin was excited. He finally saw the hope of snatching Xiaoyu back. He also knew that it was stupid of him to keep chasing after Xiaoyu. Even if he found her, it was not a matter of a sword. But he could not give up. Now, with the Starry Fist, a fist technique with unlimited possibilities, he would walk this path of invincibility. He would not be as helpless as before. He was Progenitor Qin, the strongest of his generation in the Tianyuan universe's Genesis space. He was one of the 9 mountains and 8 seas. No matter how the world changed, he would reach that height again. Within the light, the body that had been pierced by the Starry Fist had been repaired. A voice rang out. You have angered this god. I will make you beg for death. Lu Yin's lips curled up. The training is over. Then, let's go back. With that, he disappeared. The light was shocked. Where did this creature go? It had been staring at Progenitor Qin while its body was being repaired. Although Lu Yin had appeared suddenly, as long as he was not in Eternal Life realm, he could be dealt with. It had been thinking about how to deal with Progenitor Chen's punch. But it had not expected that this new creature would disappear. Suddenly, Lu Yin appeared in front of it and raised his hand. The light was shocked. It did not have time to think about how Lu Yin had suddenly appeared. Countless light dots fused and collided. Lu Yin flicked his finger. It was very light, as if he was flicking cotton, but it pierced through the light's body again. The light was stunned. What was going on? Qing Xing, Dan Hong, and Progenitor Qin were all shocked. In the past, they had not thought much of Lu Yin when he killed Eternal Life realms. But now that they had personally fought him, they realized how difficult it was to deal with an Eternal Life realm expert. They were on a different level. Even if they had used various methods to reach that level, they could only barely do so. Lu Yin, on the other hand, had walked very far on that level. Chapter 44-54. This light made them helpless even when they joined forces, but it was so powerless in front of Lu Yin that they couldn't even make a move. Lu Yin grabbed the light spot in the light and teleported away. Lu Yuan appeared. Let's go, I'll bring you back. The creatures of the divine realm civilization looked like a ball of light on the surface, moving with light spots. In fact, their essence was a light spot. Every creature of the divine realm civilization was a light spot. It was so small that even the progenitor couldn't see it clearly. When Lu Yin first learned about the divine realm civilization, he didn't expect that a small light spot would grow into a fishing civilization. The conclusion given by the 8 colors was that all living things, regardless of size or shape, had their own laws of development because all life forms existed under the law of the square inch distance. Whether it was humans, Xianling, or these light spots, they all cultivated under the law of inches. Then, it was possible to become a fishing civilization, and it had nothing to do with the strength of their own form. It could be said that it was not easy for the divine realm civilization to develop into a fishing civilization. The light spot that Lu Yin grabbed was the essence of this eternal life. It kept trying to break through Lu Yin's palm and used the law of the universe to do so, but it was useless. In front of Lu Yin, let alone a pseudo-eternal realm, even a real eternal realm would be helpless unless they combined 2 laws of the universe or broke through to the peak of 1 law of the universe. No need to struggle. Lu Yin returned to the back mountain of the above heaven sect and opened his hand. The light spot rushed out and tried to escape, but it was hit by Lu Yin's palm, causing the light spot to be faintly discernible. It was obviously severely injured. Don't fight, respected powerhouse, don't fight. The light spot made a sound and begged for mercy. Long she came and made tea for Lu Yin, looking at the light spot curiously. Lu Yin said lightly, "Which god of the divine realm civilization are you?" Long she was surprised, divine realm. This was really arrogant. Looking at the law of inches, who dared to call themselves a god? Even if they didn't know, Xianling wouldn't dare. The light spot vibrated. Fu Shen. I admire you guys. You're just a pseudo-eternal realm, but you dare to call yourself a god. Lu Yin said. How do you know us? Is it difficult? I know you guys better than you. Who are you? Lu Yin casually slapped it again, causing it to become even more indistinct. He then took out the appointed general platform hell and tossed it in. He would increase his karma first before anything else. Although he was a pseudo-immortal level expert, he had lived for many years. He should increase as much as he could. Looking at the general appointment platform, hell floated in mid-air and slowly rotated. Long she blinked. Isn't it a bit bullying? Lu Yin took a sip of tea. The strongest of this civilization is enough to completely destroy our 3 universes. Long she blinked again. Don't judge a book by its cover. After a period of time, the speck of light reappeared. Lu Yin could not see how the hell of general point platform had affected it. It was just a speck of light. This life form was completely different from humans, and it was difficult to understand. The most he could do was try his best to understand the light spot's emotions from its words. There didn't seem to be any special emotional fluctuations. Lu Yin asked a lot of questions, and the dot answered honestly. Soon, Lu Yin learned that the Eternal Realm civilization 200 years away from the 3 universes was controlled by a god called Flowing Night, and the reason this bestowed god was heading this way was because of this god. Flowing Night God. Lu Yin knew that it was one of the few true eternal beings in the divine realm civilization, and its status was higher than this pseudo-immortal level expert. Why did it ask you to come this way? Lu Yin asked. The bestowed god said, I don't know. You don't know. Lu Yin was doubtful. The bestowed god hurriedly said, I really don't know, it just asked me to come in this direction and not change direction. Go, 300 years, return, 300 years. Lu Yin frowned. 300 years was bound to pass through the three universes. One universe was very small, and as long as an eternal realm expert did not check the surroundings, they might not notice it. However, the three universes were very large, and together, they could be seen even if they did not cross. You didn't come here because of the 7 treasures heavenly towed. We know about the 7 treasures heavenly towed, but not because of them. Lu Yin used karma to penetrate the speck of light. In the end, he still had to verify it with karma. He used karma to check for more than half a month, but he could not understand the truth from the bestowed God's karma. After all, it was a different civilization. The communication between the specks of light appeared in the past karma, but Lu Yin could not understand it. Why didn't you develop in this direction before? Lu Yin asked. The bestowed God said, because of the unknown. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. As expected, it was related to the unknown. It's also because of the 7 treasures heavenly towed. The bestowed God continued, a long time ago, we encountered the 7 treasures heavenly towed. It's not to be trifled with, so we gave up on this direction. Lu Yin understood, then how much do you know about the unknown? The bestowed God replied, I don't know, I only know that it's our civilization's greatest enemy. However, Lord Flowing Night definitely knows about it, as there are rumors in the civilization that Lord Flowing Night is related to the unknown. Lu Yin's eyes widened, that Flowing Night is related to the unknown. That's what everyone says, but no one can prove it. Lu Yin pondered. If that was the case, he could vaguely guess why the bestowed God had come here. It was because of the unknown. This was a method of the unknown that used a civilization to destroy it. The unknown clearly protected the human civilization for 2,000 years, and there was only one person who could do such a thing, the Master of Balance. The answer was clear, the Master of Balance was the unknown that used the divine civilization. Back then, he had severed the meteor world with a single slash and severely injured the startled Gate Lord. He had broken the rules of the unknown, but no one had been able to catch him. Now, he was using the divine civilization to attack the human civilization, and his goal was to weaken the human civilization. After all, although they had not come into contact with the immortal civilization, the addition of sunken immortality, the ancient gods' breakthrough, and the addition of the stone golems and Barong were all increasing the strength of the three universes. If he was not wrong, then the Master of Balance wanted to use the divine civilization to beat down the human civilization. He did not really want to use the divine civilization to destroy them because the protection period of the unknown was still up. This move was the same as the one that had severed the meteor world. Lu Yin took a deep breath. Although it was just a guess, he was almost certain that this was the case. He was glad that he had not used the reward of the unknown to search for traces of the powerful human civilization. Otherwise, the divine civilization would have attacked long ago and would not have waited until now. The Master of Balance's methods could be very slow or very fierce. Then, was the bestowed God's arrival a warning from the Master of Balance? He had guessed that Lu Yin would understand and was clearly trying to stop him. If he strengthened the three universes, what awaited him would not just be in bestowed God, but an entire divine civilization. The bestowed God did not know what Lu Yin was thinking. He really did not understand how such a powerful civilization could appear in this direction other than the 7 treasures heavenly towed. Not to mention those experts with similar strength, this creature was unfathomable to him. It was very powerful. Why did Lord Nightflow ask him to come? Was it because of this civilization? Lu Yin sat there in deep thought and did not move. He sat there for 3 days. During this time, long she did not come. Lu Yin could not disturb her at this time. 3 days later, Lu Yin looked up at the Karma Heavenly Tao and raised his hand. Karma descended, connecting heaven and earth, and finally turned into a path sword that flew towards the bestowed God. The bestowed God could not see Karma at all, but he instinctively wanted to avoid it. But he could not avoid it. The path sword entered his body. Luin grabbed him and teleported again and again. Soon, he arrived at the place where the bestowed god and progenitor Qin had fought. Go back. The bestowed god was uneasy. You want me to go back? Luin smiled. You want to stay? The bestowed god turned and fled in the direction he came from. Luin watched him leave. This was a conversation between him and the Master of Balance. He had received the Master of Balance's warning. Letting the bestowed god go was telling the Master of Balance that this matter would not escalate. He also hoped that the Master of Balance would not attract the Divine Realm civilization. If the bestowed god died in his hands, the Divine Realm civilization would know. At first, Luin thought that if City and the Divine Realm civilization went to war, they could share the pressure of the human civilization. Even if they killed the bestowed god, the Divine Realm civilization would not have time to worry. But now he knew that as long as the Master of Balance was willing, even if City and the Divine Realm civilization went to war, they could still attract strong enemies. Even if it was not the Divine Realm civilization, it could be others. The Master of Balance almost killed Tell Heaven. The human civilization was too far away. The current situation with the Divine Realm civilization was divided into two parts. The first part was Lu Yin's plan to instigate the Death Universe's City to war with the Divine Realm civilization to reduce the pressure on the human civilization. The second part was the Master of Balance's plan to warn Lu Yin with the bestowed god. Lu Yin had experienced both parts, but the Master of Balance had not. He had his methods of warning, and Lu Yin also had his own plans in the dark. It was just that he could not act rashly and alert the enemy. Lu Yin let out a deep breath. If not for Jiu Lei, they would not have been so suppressed. He could have developed unscrupulously and had his own methods of balancing all sides until the human civilization reached the peak. It was just like the game with the Eternals during the Tianyuan universe's era. Unfortunately, Jiu Lei made the human civilization too high profile, and everything he did was limited. He could only find another way. No matter how powerful the Master of Balance was, he was not a true god. Humans would always be able to walk out of this. But why did the Master of Balance stay in the Tianyuan universe? When Jiu Lei had killed Qiu Su in the Nine Firmaments universe, he had not told the unknown. After releasing the bestowed god, Lu Yin returned to the Tianyuan universe and continued to cultivate the Starry Fist with progenitor Chen in the Mirage domain. Progenitor Chen's Starry Fist was narrow, but Lu Yin's Starry Fist was unimaginably wide. When progenitor Chen learned that Lu Yin had used civilization as the stars, he was shocked. He had not expected Lu Yin to be so ambitious. I only remembered when I saw Patriarch Shan use the star-toed star-seizing hand. The one who used civilization as the stars was not me, but Patriarch Shan, Lu Yin said. Progenitor Chen sighed. This is the scope of one's vision. A person's entire life of cultivation is not as important as just one look. This is the importance of a civilization's legacy, Lu Yin said, and the two continued to cultivate the Starry Fist in the Mirage domain. Chapter 44-55. Lu Yin's Starry Fist had helped progenitor Chen expand his thinking, and he wanted to expand his Starry Fist. However, the Mirage could not be completely cultivated. Battles would cause the Mirage to tremble, and they were worried about triggering the River of Time. Thus, they spent most of their time cultivating outside. Just like that, more than 100 years passed. Lu Yin appeared in one of the civilizations outside the three universes. He wanted to light up this civilization as a star to strengthen his Starry Fist. The strength of the Starry Fist lay in the breadth of the Astral Fist Manual and the number of fist intents. To light up those stars, one had to continuously comprehend fist intents. Fist intents came from oneself, from the breath in one's chest, and from the comprehension of the astral fist manual. Similarly, the difficulty of the starry fist lay in the fist intents, as there were too many of them. The wider the astral fist manual was, the more fist intents there were, but comprehending fist intents was not that easy. Lu Yin walked through the civilization and looked at the strange creatures of this civilization. He looked at the stars and tried to understand the civilization and light up the stars. This was the path that he wanted to take. At the same time, this path would also allow him to build a high wall of his heart. Every civilization had its own characteristics. For example, the civilization that he was in now had no lies. It was as if there were no lies in these creatures. It could also be said that lies could not be born in this civilization. There were no lies, and many of them were gone, but there were also many more. The sincerity of every creature allowed this civilization to develop in a healthy direction. Any creature that had thoughts that were unfavorable to their own civilization would not be able to hide it. However, this civilization's development was extremely slow. Without lies, there would be no scheming, no creation, and a lot more. Lu Yin walked under the stars and experienced a world without lies. In the end, he realized that he was not used to this world. Next. The star chart that progenitor Lu Yuan and the others had drawn included many civilizations. It seemed like it was only a few hundred years away from the eternal realm, but if one was not an eternal realm, it would be impossible to travel from one civilization to another. The spiritualized universe and the Tianyuan universe were very close to each other, and even a bitter adversity powerhouse would need a long time to cross. This was a distance that even an eternal realm expert would need to spend 100 years or more to cross. Even if there were very few civilizations within the star chart, there were still many civilizations within this range. Lu Yin walked from civilization to civilization at a fast pace. He constantly lit up his astral fist manual and also increased the range of his star chart. It could be said that the future of the starry sky fist was promising. In the continent of the 9 clouds, in Yihai, in the red leaves forest, Hong was seated on a stone bench. She slowly raised her hand. The red leaves had changed. She turned her head and looked in a certain direction. That was where Chu Songyun was in seclusion. Chu Songyun had come to the 3 universes to travel around. In the end, after becoming Lu Yin's disciple, he had chosen this place as his training ground. Back then, he had obtained Qinglian Yu's approval. The first time he had come here, it was to see Hong Er. Hong Er was a descendant of Jiao Wen's disciple from the Pawn civilization. That Pawn civilization had been abandoned by the Green Lotus ruler, and she had remained here as a chess piece. In the end, she was used as a bait to plot against Red Hero. It could be said that Hong did not seem to be of much use, but she was actually indispensable. Chu Songyun wanted to meet her because she acknowledged his identity as a red specter under the stars, but she did not completely belong to the red specter under the stars. Moreover, this woman had dared to question Yongxing at the startling Sparrow Terrace. Not everyone had this kind of courage. After coming here, Chu Songyun realized that this place was especially suitable for him to cultivate. The battle skill that he cultivated was called Solar Pine Withered Leaf Domain. This entire red leaves forest was filled with withered leaves, and it was located in the Karma Sea. It was the most ideal place to cultivate. After obtaining Qinglian Yu and Lu Yin's approval, he had stayed here. Of course, he had also obtained Hong Er's approval. Hong Er was also very curious about Chu Songyun's cultivation method. She had heard that he cultivated the true emotionless Tao. The past few hundred years had been very peaceful, but recently, the red leaves forest seemed to have changed. Every withered leaf was falling at a slower speed. It had nothing to do with the wind or gravity. It was as if the withered leaves were unwilling to leave the tree. Hong Er took a withered leaf and immediately felt a myriad of emotions. Her eyes turned red, and she looked at Chu Song-yun's training ground again. She knew that the changes here were related to this person. He had affected the withered leaves, the red leaves forest, and even herself. Cheng! The sword hummed softly, and a red light swept across the world. Hong looked at the red light that flashed in front of her and seemed to see her own reflection in it. The red light flashed, and the sword's edge flashed. Chu Song-yun had come out of seclusion at some point. He grabbed the sword's hilt and looked at it in a daze. Outside Yihai, figures appeared one after another. They were Shui Ta Shangyu, Shui Men Shangyu, and the others. There was also a fish, Ba Rong. When the red light flashed in front of its eyes, it was almost scared to death. At that moment, it felt as if it was facing a terrifying monster. Chu Song-yun faced everyone and bowed slowly. I'm trying to break through to immortality. Seniors, please help to limit the aftermath and not affect the innocent. Shui Ta Shangyu's eyes lit up. Just do it. Leave the rest to us. Thank you, senior. Chu Song-yun retracted his gaze and looked at the sword in his hand. More than 300 years ago, his master had personally handed this sword to him. Since the moment he received this sword, he knew that he was getting closer to breaking through to immortality. He was getting closer. Originally, he was an ultimate powerhouse below immortality. He had fought with Yi Shao before, and was only one step away from immortality. This step was impossible for underworld Hong Yi in the past, but it was different now. He was walking the true emotionless Tao, and within this sword, there was also base master Hong Shuang's emotionless Tao. It was time to try to break through to immortality. Self-breakthrough to immortality was different from stepping into immortality with the help of the universe's reboot. With the help of the universe's reboot, one had to constantly repeat the process of origin and decay with immortal matter to give birth to life energy. As one's realm transformed, the life energy would grow and multiply endlessly. As for self-breakthrough, everyone was different. It depended on each person's understanding of immortality and the degree of self-cultivation. Mr. Mu broke through by sitting in the cauldron and sinking into the river of time for many years before finally taking that step. But in the end, he still had to return to the ninth stronghold. When Chu Song-yun broke through at this moment, Jingmen Shangyu thought of this and hurriedly reminded him, if you want to enter immortality, shouldn't you return to the universe where you were born? Chu Song-yun slowly let go of the sword hilt. With it here, there's no need. After saying that, the surroundings were instantly filled with withered leaves. Some came from the red leaves forest, but most of them were formed by the emotionless Tao. The withered leaves continued to spread toward the entire nine heavens universe. The withered leaves did not need to be stopped as they would not cause any damage to civilization. Chu Song-yun sat cross-legged as the withered leaves scattered all over the world. In front of him, the red sword floated, and an umbrella opened behind him. It was not Jiu Wen's umbrella, but his own. The emotionless Tao red umbrella used the emotionless Tao as its frame. As the red umbrella closed, the withered leaves between heaven and earth stopped. Countless people looked at the floating withered leaves in confusion. Someone reached out and touched it. In an instant, their gaze shifted to the red umbrella. They saw a different world, and Chu Song-yun's gaze shifted to that person. He felt that person's joys and sorrows. There were emotions in the world, but walking the emotionless Tao was not really emotionless. The point was not emotionless, but the opposite of emotions. What was the difference between the emotionless Tao of the second stronghold and the emotionless Tao of the red dress under the stars? Why was one right? Why was one wrong? In the past, Chu Song-yun did not know why his emotionless Tao was right. He was only determined to walk on this path. Step by step, he followed his heart. His closed heart and innate characteristics made his emotionless Tao right. In fact, this so-called right was not the emotionless Tao itself, but his innate talent. As long as he did not pursue true emotionless Tao, it was right. The red clothes under the stars had the emotionless Tao, but Hong Shuang was the most emotionless. The emotionless Tao was actually very simple. It was so simple that no one would believe it. This was the second stronghold's return to simplicity. Emotionlessness was just a term. Emotionlessness was still a type of emotion. In the past, Chu Songyun did not understand. But now, he did. He felt Hong Shuang's emotionless Tao in the sword, and it completely refreshed his understanding. He also saw his own essence. So this was the emotionless Tao. Countless people touched the withered leaves. He saw the gazes of countless people and felt their hearts at this moment. Some were happy, some were sad. All kinds of emotions filled their hearts. He saw clearly that there was love, and he also saw clearly that there was no love. One umbrella frame connected to the red umbrella. 8 umbrella frames, and the 8th was the emotionless Tao. In the legends of the red clothes under the stars, 70% of the emotionless Tao was eternal life. However, there were people with extraordinary talent who could comprehend the 7th part of the emotionless Tao while not in the eternal realm. Such people were rare, but they existed. Red Hero was one of them. Chu Songyun was also one of them. Back then, he had revealed the 7th part of the umbrella frame in his battle with Yi Shao. However, no one had ever held up the 8th part of the umbrella frame without being in the eternal realm. Now, Chu Songyun had done it. He had not broken through to the eternal realm, but he had connected the 8th part of the umbrella frame, surpassing Red Hero. It was rare. If it were not for the unknown history of the second barrier, Chu Songyun might be recognized as the only person in the history of the emotionless Tao who had connected 8 umbrella frames while not in the eternal realm. When the 8th part of the umbrella frame was connected, alarmed Gate Shangyu and the others were shocked. They knew very well that even if Chu Songyun had not broken through to the eternal realm, he must be at the level of a rogue at this moment. He was definitely a rogue who could kill ordinary eternal realm experts. Ba Yu looked at Chu Songyun, and her eyes were full of shock. 8 umbrella frames, not in the eternal realm. Could this person reach the level of Hong Shuang? Inside the red umbrella, Chu Songyun's eyes widened, and his aura suddenly rose. Everyone felt the impact of the emotionless Tao. It was different from the coldness that they imagined. The emotionless Tao could also give people warmth. Vitality surged out, and Chu Songyun officially stepped into the eternal realm. He grabbed the sword hilt, and an indescribable vast force instantly shrouded the 3 universes. This force made everyone in awe. It was a terrifying force that they had never felt before. Mr. Mu's eyes narrowed. Was this the power of old ancestor Shan? He had felt the power of old ancestor Shan before. It was in accordance with the laws of the 3 universes and was invincible. Now, he felt a similar power again. That sword belonged to Hong Shuang. This was Hong Shuang's emotionless Tao. Therefore, Chu Songyun did not need to go to Hong Shuang's universe under the stars. Hong Shuang's emotionless Tao was the most authentic emotionless Tao. That sword could make up for everything. Chapter 44-56. In the Tianyuan universe, the Forgotten Ruins God and Wang Xiaoyu looked up at the starry sky. They also felt this power. It was unfathomable, and they could not imagine what kind of existence could have such power. Tiango's ears drooped, and it did not dare to raise its head. It was too terrifying. A voice came from Tiango's back. How many years has it been since I last felt this power? Are you okay? It's time for us to meet. After speaking, he raised his hand, and his jade-like palm casually tapped the air. A sword intent appeared in the air and shot towards the 9th heaven universe. The sword intent descended from the 9th heaven and slashed towards Chu Songyun. It came quickly, but the speed of the slash was not fast. Shang Yu and the others saw it and were shocked. They hurriedly attacked. The blood tower was pierced, and the grey time was torn apart by the sword intent. Shang Yu, Chen Jian, Mr. Mu, and the others all attacked together, but no one could stop this sword. Just a single sword intent kept approaching Chu Songyun, wanting to kill him. Helpless, Mr. Mu pushed his fortified turbid treasure in front of Chu Songyun. The sword intent did not collide, and it disappeared immediately. Then, it appeared behind the fortified turbid treasure and slashed towards Chu Songyun. At this moment, no power could stop it. Chu Songyun looked at the approaching sword intent. Master, even if I don't break through, I will lure this envoy of balance out for you. After speaking, he suddenly grabbed the sword hilt and slashed. The sword swept past, but it did not touch anything. The sword intent passed through the sword and appeared in front of Chu Songyun. Chu Songyun was stunned. How could this be? In the three universes, no power could stop that sword intent. At this moment, the sword intent became the center of the universe, the center of everyone's attention. Just as the sword intent was about to kill Chu Songyun, an umbrella frame blocked it, and a soft bang sounded. Chu Songyun looked at the umbrella frame in front of him. This was not his red umbrella, nor was it Senior Jiao Wen's red umbrella. What was this? Looking up along the umbrella frame, the river of time flowed past in the void. A red umbrella appeared and gradually opened up, repelling the sword intent. You're finally out. Do you know how long I've been waiting for this moment? The gentle voice on Tiango's back attacked again, and the sword intent was about to slash out. Back in Nina Firmament's universe, Lu Yin teleported over and brought Grandmaster Qingchao with him. He shouted, "Portal!" Grandmaster Qingchao opened the portal without hesitation, which led to the unknown. Lu Yin stared at the Tian Yuan cosmos. Keeper of balance, you've broken the rules time and time again. Do you know that the rules are greater than the heavens? How are you going to explain this? The person on Tiango's back was vexed. Your reaction is really fast. He then disappeared. At this moment, the god of forgetfulness and Wang Xiaoyu finally dared to look. There was no one on the heavenly hound's back. That person had left. The three universes were peaceful. Nine Clouds universe. Lu Yin stared at the Tian Yuan universe. Would he make a move? It shouldn't be. Master. Chu Songyun shouted. Lu Yin looked at him and smiled, break through. No one will be able to stop you. Chu Songyun's eyes burned with passion, yes. After he finished speaking, he sat down cross-legged, and vitality surged from his body. Lu Yin looked at the red umbrella above his head. This was the second stronghold's guardian artifact, Hong Shuang's weapon. Everyone was looking at the red umbrella. The red umbrella had emerged from the river of time. More accurately, it had come from the mirage domain. It had to be the forbidden area that had been searched many times, but there was nothing there. Where had the red umbrella been hidden? Lu Yin's eyes flashed. He was actually waiting, hoping that Hong Shuang would appear. After all, her guardian artifact had appeared. But after waiting for a while, nothing happened. He could only teleport away. During the battle of the Ninth Civilization, Hong Shuang and Emperor Qiu had fought at the pinnacle. She had been betrayed by Red Hero, and they had both been severely injured. Emperor Qiu had died in battle, and Hong Shuang had fled into the forbidden area of the Mirage domain. She had also taken away her guardian artifact. The scene of the woman in red entering the forbidden area kept replaying in Lu Yin's mind. That was Hong Shuang. Hong Shuang was definitely not dead, and she should be in the Mirage domain. The Keeper of Balance had stopped attacking. Perhaps he had gone to the forbidden area of the Mirage domain. Since the red umbrella had emerged from the mirage domain, he must have seen it. Although Lu Yin was not sure, he had to go to the forbidden area just in case. He was taking a risk. If he encountered the Keeper of Balance, it would be extremely dangerous. But he had no other choice. If Hong Shuang was in the mirage domain and the Keeper of Balance attacked, the situation would be unpredictable. Lu Yin had experienced the confrontation between Hongyan Mavis and Fingbua. If not for his appearance, Hongyan Mavis would still be trapped. Lu Yin arrived in the mirage domain and looked at the forbidden area, but there was nothing there. He looked at the river of time and saw Zhao Ran. Zhao Ran also looked at him. What happened? Lu Yin asked. Zhao Ran said, an umbrella emerged from the forbidden area. What else? Nothing else. Nothing else. Lu Yin frowned. Did anyone or a creature go to the forbidden area? Zhao Ran shook her head. No. Lu Yin walked towards the forbidden area and entered. He came out again, but there was nothing there. It was still empty inside. Strange. Hong Shuang was not here. Did the Keeper of Balance not come? Had he guessed wrong? Then why had the red umbrella emerged from the forbidden area? Lu Yin teleported away from the mirage domain and arrived at Ninifirmament's universe. At this moment, the time in the outside world had not changed. Chu Songyun's body was surging with vitality, and his red umbrella had propped up another umbrella frame. He had reached 90% ruthlessness, and he had officially stepped into the eternal realm. All that was left was to comprehend the laws of the universe. Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Patriarch Lu Yuan had called him back in time. Otherwise, Chu Songyun would have been in danger. When Patriarch Lu Yuan had found him and told him that Chu Songyun was about to break through to the eternal realm, Lu Yin knew that things were not good. The Keeper of Balance would not allow the human civilization to become stronger. Thus, he had immediately brought Master Grass with him and threatened him with the unknown door. Actually, it was already too late. If not for the turbid red umbrella, Chu Songyun would have been dead. The increase in the human civilization's strength had caused the Keeper of Balance to act more frequently. It was very troublesome. Hong Shuang had not appeared either. Where was she? In the Tianyuan universe, Tiango's body sank. The Forgotten Ruins God and Wang Xiaoyu bowed respectfully. If she isn't here, then I've really walked a path of no return. All these years of waiting have lost its meaning. Then, let everything disappear. After speaking, a door appeared in front of him, and a voice sounded. 8 colors. You've broken the rules. 8 colors voice sounded. I'm both inside and outside of your civilization. What rules are there? Besides, I didn't do anything to that person. Unknown. The rules are greater than the heavens, and you cannot be an exception. You can do it once and twice, but not thrice. Alright, but the human civilization's strength is constantly increasing, and it's getting out of control. Humans are a very strange civilization. They live like ants, but they have unlimited possibilities. Some people are entrenched in their own world, while others have the universe in their hearts. It's limitless. Don't let a second ninth base appear. Impossible. 8 colors was certain. Don't force us to go to war during the protection period for the human civilization. Understood. Time passed day by day. On this day, Chu Songyun's aura gradually calmed down. The endless withered leaves turned to dust. The disappearance of this natural phenomenon meant that Chu Songyun had officially stepped into the eternal realm. The human civilization had gained another eternal being. The Blood Tower Lord laughed. Everyone was happy. First, it was the ancient god, and now, it was Chu Songyun. The breakthroughs of these people made them feel as if they were witnessing the arrival of civilization's glory. At this moment, even if the Keeper of Balance had locked down the upper limit of the human civilization, it was temporarily forgotten. Ba Rong's head was dizzy. How many eternal beings did this civilization have? Why were there so many? 1, 2, 3. In today's human civilization, excluding the stone monster and Ba Rong, there were 10 true eternal beings. In addition to the 2 rascals, Lu Yin and progenitor Qin, there were 12. There were 14 eternal beings, and among them, there was even a treasure. In terms of strength, other than the lack of absolute powerhouses, the human civilization was actually a fishing civilization. It was a pity that the Blue Lotus Lord had sealed the Red Lotus tomb. Otherwise, there would be another eternal being. With so many eternal beings, it was no wonder that Ba Rong was stunned. Chu Songyun faced Lu Yin and bowed deeply. Thank you for your teachings, Master. Without you, I would never have stepped into the eternal being. Lu Yin smiled faintly. This is your own opportunity. Chu Songyun was extremely grateful to Lu Yin. If it weren't for Lu Yin, he would still be in the red coat universe under the stars, resisting the path of ruthlessness. Without Lu Yin, where would he get that sword? Without Lu Yin, he would have died just now. Lu Yin was not only his master, but also his benefactor. Immediately after, everyone looked at the red umbrella. It was a treasure, Hong Shuang's weapon. It did not leave because of Chu Songyun's breakthrough. It was still floating in the sky. Chu Songyun. Your disciple is here. Take the treasure. Chu Songyun looked at the red umbrella and walked towards it step by step. Everyone had their own opportunities. Of the 2 treasures, one belonged to Mr. Mu and the other belonged to Chu Songyun. Neither of them belonged to Lu Yin. Lu Yin would not force himself to take the opportunity. Moreover, he could not use so many treasures anyway. The human civilization once had the 9 bases. It was not impossible for the 9 bases to appear again. Since he had decided to take another path, he was not afraid to think too much. Come, no matter how many civilizations are hostile to you, you're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.